make a start. I declare the meeting open at 7:02 p.m. So welcome everyone here, councillors, staff, public that are here with us, and also the public that are listening online as well tonight. A number of members from the public have registered to speak by audio-visual link on an agenda item and are asked to keep your microphone muted and video off until I invite you to speak. Speakers will not be able to present material as part of their speaking time or share their screen. Everyone at this meeting is reminded to conduct themselves in a polite and professional manner, keep communication factual, use appropriate language and tone. Do not use any defamatory or derogatory remarks. Defamation laws apply to addresses in public forum. I also ask councillors to observe the requirements under the Code of Meeting Practice and Meeting Etiquette, including debate on an item will commence only once we have a mover and a seconder, other than the Merrill Minute. The mover has a right of reply before the motion is put. Raise your hand to indicate you wish to speak. On commencement of you speaking on a motion or amendment, please indicate clearly whether you are speaking for or against the motion or amendment. Councillors, you can speak for up to 5 minutes for or against a motion, and similar for any amendment. For the efficient conduct of this meeting, it is not necessary to repeat matters you agree with or raised by a previous speaker. I also remind everyone that the video recording is an official record of council and may be made available to persons upon request in accordance with the Government Information Public Access Act 2009. No other recordings are permitted. Now I'd like to acknowledge the country on which we meet tonight. Bayside Council respects the traditional custodians of the land, elders past and present, on which this meeting takes place, and acknowledges the Gadigal and Bidjigal clans of the Sydney Basin. Next item is our opening prayer, and I now invite Reverend Andy Boots of St Matt's Anglican Church, Botany, to open up the meeting in prayer. Please stand, councillors.
Father in heaven, thank you that our country enjoys peace and prosperity. We are a blessed nation, but at the same time, many people we know have trials. Almighty God, ruler of the nations of the earth, give wisdom to the newly elected Prime Minister, the Premier of this state, and to the newly elected members of Parliament, and to all who hold office in this land. Grant that all their decisions may be based on wise counsel, so that peace and welfare, truth and justice may prevail among us, and make us a blessing to the other nations. Help these leaders here to remember that as leaders set aside by you to serve the people under their care. Give these leaders, including our Mayor and all the councillors here present, great wisdom, honour and integrity. And as they make decisions, that they make them for the good of the people in this community that they're responsible. Thank you for the model of the Lord Jesus, as someone who showed us what true leadership is by serving us and dying in our place. Help all these leaders to maintain the same sacrificial spirit in service of the people of our area. Heavenly Father, we pray all these things in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend.
Madam Mayor, with your indulgence, I think it's appropriate through just having heard a prayer that we have a minute silence for the children in Texas that were massacred today. If we could have a minute silence, would be appreciated.
Thank you, Councillor Naji. If everyone would like to stand. And our thoughts and prayers are with all their families and friends. Thank you, councillors. Thank you, councillor Nard. All right, apologies and attendance. Do we have any apologies?
Councillor Sooner said he's still at work, so he said he won't make it at the moment. So here's
Okay.
an apology.
Thank
he rang
you.
me on the way here.
Someone happy to move? It's a second. Thank you, councillor Naji. That unless councillor Souness arrives, he will be an apology. Okay, we move to item 5, which is disclosures of interest. So we have a number of disclosures of interests. Thank you, councillors, for submitting them prior. So these can be viewed on the screen. So I'll just, Councillor Werner. Would you?
I'd like to declare less than significant non-pecuniary interest in item 10.1 on the basis of perception, as I was spokesperson of Friends of Gardiner Park Inc. community group during the time that some of the costs that are mentioned in the report were incurred, and I would like to say I'm no longer a member of the organisation, but I will leave the chamber for consideration and voting on the matter. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Werner. So that was just 10.1? Okay, councillor Saranowski.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In relation to 10.2, I'll declare a pecuniary interest on the basis that I'm an employee of one of the lenders named in the report, as stated, and would also leave the chamber when this item is voted on.
Thank you, councillor Saranowski. Councillor Morrissey.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Same disclosure from me, pecuniary interest in item 10.2. I'm employed by one of the lenders named in the report, and I'll be leaving the chamber for voting. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Morrissey. Councillor Muscat.
Sorry, for 11.2, I'm declaring a significant non-pecuniary interest in 11.1 on the basis that I'm the president of Botany RSL Swimming Club, and I will leave the chamber for consideration for voting on the matter.
Thank you, councillor Muscat. I would also like to disclose my interest in item 11.3, 009 of the City Works and Assets Committee meeting, Brighton Bars Amenities Building Payment Plan Update, in relation to the fact that I attended a fundraiser for the Bayside Women's Shelter at the Leases venue, and as a member of the board, the shelter received a donation. I will leave the meeting and councillor Morrissey will take the chair for that item. Councillor Douglas.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I would also like to declare a significant non-pecuniary interest in item 11.3 CWA 22.009 on the basis of perception in regards to the licensee for the Lassans restaurant, as his son-in-law or her son-in-law Ilias Sortzis preferenced me as his third preference in the council elections on the 4th of December 2021, and I will leave the chamber for the consideration and voting on the matter. I also have 2 others which I forwarded to Fausto, which reflects previous meetings, both 7.2 and 12.6, which are for less than significant non-pecuniary interests on the basis that I am a member of Peaceful Streets and have been Peaceful Bayside and have been campaigning for Peaceful Streets.
Thank you, councillor Douglas. Councillor Jansen.
Yes, I'm declaring a less than significant non-pecuniary interest in item 11.3, CWA 22.009 on the basis that I attended a fundraiser at the premise for the Bayside Women's Shelter, but I bought my own ticket to the fundraiser and I'll remain in the chamber for consideration and voting. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Jansen. Councillor Werner.
Sorry, I've just realised I should probably declare a less than significant non-pecuniary interest as well in the item 11.3 CWA 22.009, the Brighton Baths Amenities building, because I went to that same function and I bought my own ticket as well. So I'll stay in the chamber. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I declare a less than significant non-pecuniary interest on this item, which is 11.3, on the basis of my son's christening was 12 years ago at this place of at this restaurant, and I will leave the chamber when this item is debated.
Thank you, Councillor Saranowski. Are there any further disclosures? If I have it that no councillors wish to disclose any further interests, this will be noted in the minutes. Thank you, councillors. All right, we have the minutes, number 6, minutes of the previous meetings. So we have 6.1, the minutes of the council meeting, 27th of April 2022, and we also have the minutes of the extraordinary council meeting, the 11th of May 2022. Moved Councillor Naji, seconded Councillor Saranowski. All in favour say aye.
Madam Mayor, I think I might have a correction to those minutes. I think it might be a typo. 11.2, the minutes of the Corporate Performance Committee meeting on the 6th of April, which I think are incorporated into that, CP 22.001, it's headed amended rate peg 2022/23, but then after that there's an open bracket that says, I had left this. I had this left, with no close to the bracket.
Okay.
So I think that's just a typo. So that I had this left
Okay,
needs
thank
to
you.
come out.
Thank you, Councillor Hannah. We'll ensure that that is corrected. And please, if you see any errors or omissions, please feel free to email them through and they'll be rectified for the next printed version if it's prior to the meeting. Thank you. All right, so I was up to all those in favour say aye. Against, declare the minutes carried. All right, we now move to the mayoral minutes. So we have 3 mayoral minutes and we also have 1 confidential mayoral minute tonight. So council has received an interested citizen wishing to speak in favour of one of the mayoral minutes, that being the 7.1, the mayoral minute on domestic violence. And in order to allow that, we need to resolve to suspend standing orders to deal with this item in public forum. Is someone happy to move that way? Moved Councillor Jansen, second Councillor Morrissey. All those in favour say aye. Against, declare it carried. I now invite Mrs. Sally Ann Faulkner, interested citizen, who has registered to speak in favour of item 7.1. Good evening, Mrs. Faulkner, welcome.
Good evening, thank you, Mayor. Good evening all. My name's Sally Ann Faulkner and I'm the General Manager of Bayside Women's Shelter, a resident of Bayside LGA for over 28 years. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to Council and to our community via this Council meeting tonight. Bayside Women's Shelter is a crisis accommodation refuge caring for children, women and their children who are escaping domestic and family violence and homelessness in Bayside LGA. We wrap important services around these children and women, and we empower them with the dignity so that they can rebuild independent and safe lives and return to our Bayside community under their own terms and with renewed joy for their and their children's futures. This month is Domestic Violence Awareness and Prevention Month, and I acknowledge the continued and ongoing support of Bayside Council in amplifying the important work that we do within the community. We also work towards breaking the cycle of domestic and family violence by empowering our youth with education and language that helps them understand the choices that they have within respectful relationships. During this month, we've had the opportunity to work and talk further with our community and corporate partners to highlight the social and personal impacts of domestic and family violence. Domestic and family violence can happen to anyone. It's not simply physical violence. We work with women who have suffered financial abuse, emotional abuse, and increasingly a number who have suffered with abuse via technology. Last week, whilst I was attending the Domestic Violence New South Wales conference, the Police Commissioner for New South Wales, Commissioner Webb, pointed out that domestic and family violence, a crime she calls one of the silent crimes, takes up over 40% of our New South Wales police force's time at present. She has determined her 5 main priority areas for the New South Wales police force going forward, and domestic and family violence is one of those first in those priorities. Further, she has undertaken that the New South Wales Police Force will provide a safe, appropriate and caring response to victim survivors. It's been long acknowledged that domestic and family violence is a symptom of gender inequality, and therefore it's imperative that we work as a community to change attitudes and behaviours within our beautiful Bayside. I commend Bayside Council for working towards delivering an action plan that increases awareness and prevention of domestic and family violence across all of the sectors of our community within Bayside. I'd like to note that I understand Council is considering a remembrance walk or memorial that commemorates local women and men lost to domestic and family violence, and that would importantly facilitate open conversations across our community. These initiatives will allow the awareness of our important work to grow, and it will also definitely affect intergenerational change. Thank you for the opportunity to address you during Domestic Violence Awareness and Prevention Month, and thank you for your continued support. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mrs. Faulkner, for being here this evening. According to statistics by New South Wales Police, on average, one woman is killed every week at the hands of a current or former partner, and 1 in 3 women have been a victim of physical or sexual violence from someone known to them. 1 in 4 young people are prepared to excuse violence from a partner. Sometimes people from a culturally and linguistic diverse background generally misunderstand what domestic violence is and don't know their legal rights in relation to it. New South Wales also repeat that elder abuse is on the rise in Bayside. Bayside local government area has had 620 domestic violence incidents in 2021. Domestic violence has increased by 8.9% from 2015 to 2020. Of 132 local government areas in New South Wales, Bayside LGA is ranked 74, compared with other LGAs in southern Sydney, such as Georges River 93 and Sutherland 92. The cycle of domestic and family violence starts with disrespectful personnel and or family attitudes and behaviours, and it's something that we all play a role in, all levels of government, the community and society. We all play a role in removing violence. And I want to acknowledge Council, the previous term of Council ran a number of initiatives. We had the signs on our garbage trucks saying no to violence, and have run a number of initiatives and programs. And I think it's important that what we do is implement an action plan where we continue those different programs and support services, so that we continue to draw attention to domestic violence and work towards prevention. And so you can see there from the motion that there are the 3 recommendations there. So I move that the mayoral minute be adopted. All those in favour say aye. Is there any further discussion?
I did have a suggestion, Madam Mayor. The new Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, has committed in the pre-election period to $153 million to address interfamily and sexual violence, including funding 500 new community workers. I wondered if we could add to the motion that we write to the new Prime Minister, potentially congratulate him for his position and convey the needs of our community, and ask him to follow through on that election promise.
And just so thank you, Councillor Douglas. Just so councillors are aware, I have written on behalf of all of us, the council and councillors, to congratulate. And I'll just take this opportunity. I'll come back if you don't mind, Councillor Douglas, to say, congratulations to our new Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, and for his re-election, and also to the re-election of our we've got two wonderful federal members in the Honourable Linda Burney and the Honourable Matthew Thistlethwaite. And so so I've written on behalf of us to congratulate them on their re-election, and so just want to do that here also. And I'm more than happy to add that too, and what will be good is to let the Prime Minister know the great work Bayside is doing in this space, and we'll certainly send him our outward-facing action plan once that's been developed. So thank you. Any further discussion? Councillor Werner.
Thank you for bringing this motion. This is a really excellent initiative, so really would like to support that. At the New South Wales Local Government Conference, I attended a information session about domestic violence and the things that councils can do. And one of the things that was brought up was a gender equity strategy. So this was something that had been implemented at Blue Mountains Council, and it was something that that really helped them address gender, because gender equity is one of the things, as you said, that's really important for addressing domestic violence. So I was wondering if we could include that perhaps in the number 2, where it says that council embeds gender equality and respect in council and our community by developing a gender equity strategy.
Do we have a gender equity strategy? Yeah. Look, I think that's a good suggestion. Can I suggest that let's start with the action plan, and what comes out of the action plan will then determine the next phases. So I think, so that's something that'll come, the action plan will come to committee, and then that's the opportunity to see, well, what's in there, because we have highlighted the embedding of gender equality and respect in council, so that moves across a number of different areas. But let's, if you don't mind, we'll once that action plan comes, and we'll start embedding that in there.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Werner. Councillor Morrissey.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. It's more just an observation, and we're all embedded into our communities, and one thing that I'm observing from the sidelines, I suppose, is the use of domestic violence as an acronym, and it's not an acronym. So I think when we're talking about that, when we're in our communities, please don't say DV. Too many people are saying that, and I think it really just depersonalises what is a very big problem to an acronym that young people love, with the text and the abbreviations. So I think we should all make a commitment to ourselves. I'm not seeking any hands or anything like that, but just if you hear somebody in the community referring to DV, that we be proactive and say, sorry, it's not DV, it's domestic violence, and it's quite a serious problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Morrissey. Any further discussion? All those in favour say aye. Against? Declare it carried. We now move to 7.2, Merrill Minute, Streets Alive event at Brighton Sands, which was held on the 14th and 15th, which I know many of us attended, and it was just an outstanding event. And I know this is something that Council's been working very hard towards, and Councillor McDougall, as a previous Ward 5 councillor with former Councillor McDonald as well, was a big driver behind this initiative in having the opportunity to close off that street and have a Streets Alive event. And it was an outstanding success, and it was an opportunity for us to try something new there, and I just want to acknowledge all the hard work involved in planning for and delivering. There's a lot of time and energy and effort went into it from council staff, so just want to pass on our thanks. And also I think it's worth us, obviously it was $500,000 that we got a grant for, so it's not something council can fund. But certainly, if there's opportunities for the, to put to lobby the state government to allow more of these weekends to occur, whether it's us running it, whether it's a market or something like that, that would be the first step in order to do that. So therefore I move that the Merrill Minute be adopted. It's on the screen in front of you. To acknowledge the success, thanks all our local business and stallholders, entertainers and residents. It was a great community spirit, and it was great to just bring, those businesses has struggled, as have all our local businesses. So to be able to create that opportunity, I know was very valued. And that we write to the Minister for Roads, the Honourable Natalie Ward, and the Minister for Sport and Tourism, to look at potential closures for similar weekend events subject to funding and opportunity, and also to our local members. Is there any discussion?
Madam Mayor, thank
Councillor
you.
Zarkowski.
I believe I'm standing here to support your notice of motion, and I believe that's the right approach to take. We already know the current government will not support the permanent closure of Grand Parade or between Bay Street, between Mud Avenue and Grand Parade. If we can convince the government on having events, I don't know, during the year, and we can prove that it's a success, that may go a long way to convince the government to seriously look at that a permanent closure. At the moment, the answer is no. They won't do it on it. I think that's hopefully in October. I think there's the Greek Festival. Again, we're not funding it. It is a very huge cost. That I think was $500,000 that we got from the state government, and I was there. It's great, but when I tell the ratepayers there the costs, they all sort of said, what? And if you add on the fireworks, you're close to $1 million. What it cost the council. But on this particular day, like you, it was great. It was a great atmosphere in terms of the families. Just watching the kids watching the movie screens. It was great. It reminded me when Greece won the World Cup, and we had literally thousands of people in Bay Street. They actually picked up Bob Carr and carried him through the Bay Street, because that's how much it was spectacular. And also when we had the torch relay that went through Bay Street, it was just an unbelievable atmosphere. All the shopkeepers were over the moon, because that was the boost that they needed, particularly over the COVID-19 situation. The last 2-3 years, one only needs to have a look at the shops from down from Trafalgar Street down towards Crawford Road. Most of the shops there are virtually, if they're not going broke, they're going pretty close to it. It's just that they've all been hit hard. And then the other shops from Trafalgar Street to Bay Street, to Grand Parade, their biggest problem is finding staff, and the fact that they were struggling. All of them were struggling. But on that weekend, and I went to both days. I went in the morning and in the afternoon, and at night, and just to see the stream of traffic, people going into the shops, was unbelievable. And the one thing I found accidentally, I didn't know this, but it was because I don't drink alcohol, but opposite Trafalgar Street there was a non-alcoholic cocktail bar. I never knew that. And I was with my wife, and off she went with my credit card, and off she bought a $200. So I honestly, I did not know. I actually thought that shop was a hairdresser, the way it's been laid out. But it turns out to be it's a non-alcoholic shop. But one thing I just wanted to also say is thank the community. They embraced it all. It was such a lovely event. The atmosphere was unbelievable. And more importantly, I want to thank the staff. and the directors, because it's something that I was worried because of the rain, but it just turned out God was watching over us. It was a terrific event, and I want to thank everybody involved. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Saranowski. And all our events have been blessed with wonderful weather, haven't they, to date? So we've been very, very lucky. Councillor Douglas.
I just want to reiterate everything that Bill has said and you've said, but I also want to make a special shout out to one of our residents, Robert Naxon, who was the former president of the Brighton-Lassand Chamber of Commerce. And I remember meeting Robert when we were talking about the hooning issues and how to fix them, and we were sitting at the Brighton-Lassand's RSL and looking down over the street, and he said to me, we need a streets festival, we need a Brighten Your Day festival. And that got the Peaceful Bayside community behind it. We've been pushing for that for a few years, and it was his vision. And it was so lovely because on the day of the festival, I ran into him. He was the first person I ran into. And walking through the festival together was just like a dream come true for us, for everybody around us. So yeah, I just want to shout out to Robert for his dream that he gave to me. And I think we're all carrying that dream now for more festivals in Bay Street, hopefully the closure of Bay Street one day. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Douglas. Councillor Cedric.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I too stand here to echo my fellow councillors. Going down both nights, both days with youth group, with wives, with kids, I was amazed. I just wanted to thank in particular the staff. May has been an amazing month for Bayside Council, especially at the beginning on the 14th with Ramadan, Mother's Day even prior to that, as well as on the 14th to 15th is the Brighton one. Madam Mayor, the Brighton Streets Alive Festival would not be possible without the support of the state government. The government provided substantial grants under its Festivals of Place, the Open Streets program to local councils, particularly those councils who faced the hardest lockdowns during COVID, last year in particular. Getting the money is one thing, and creating and delivering this two-day festival in Bay Street is another. I have not seen a better event in a long time. Streets Alive festival in Brighton, Bay Street. There was a lot of planning, commitment, hard work. I remember speaking to Miss Dawson early in the year about getting something in Brighton. She goes, don't worry, we've got some plans, And it took months and months until this came. So I want to thank every single one of the staff members. What an unbelievable event. The general manager for her vision, the directors, the previous mayors, the councillors from previous council, right down to the street cleaners who kept the streets free of rubbish pretty much all weekend, and everyone in between. I wanted a list of everyone involved, but I was told that's not a good idea because we're going to forget someone. So I just want to say to everyone, I would love to mention everyone by name. As a Ward 5 councillor, I could not be more proud. Now, whether we have a festival every year, and Madam Mayor, I commend your motion. It's a great initiative. If we can do it, let's do it. I know the cost is $500,000, and even in my motion later on, we need to put this to the community. This is amazing. I think we all need to say, well done. We have so many negative things that are happening in Bayside and around the world, and this is one of those positive ones. And it was so much fun to go down with my fellow councillors, to go down and hang out and have a drink and have a laugh. I want to commend everyone and thank everybody once again. Great effort.
Thank you, Councillor Cedric. Councillor McDougall. Councillor Muscat.
Sorry, Mayor, I'd like to acknowledge that the Streets Alive is a great idea, but I'd also like to see it going out to all the other wards if we can make each ward have a street alive of some sort so that everyone is encompassing and everyone can visit each other's wards and see what we have to offer in our Great Bayside.
Thank you, Councillor Muscat.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for bringing this mayoral minute. I think it gives it the appropriate attention it deserves. This was something I was very excited about for a long time, and that I've certainly been working towards, not just this term but the previous one as well. and sadly I had a long-standing engagement and couldn't be there that weekend.
Can I take this opportunity,
thank you.
Councillor McDougall, on
I was
behalf...
obviously trying to avoid saying that.
No. It was coming anyway. On behalf of council staff, councillors, we'd just like to congratulate yourself and Ella on your wedding. And
Thank you. Look, it was, it was probably missing it for an appropriate reason, but nevertheless, we did fly back from our honeymoon on Sunday night, and we went straight to Streets Alive, which is hard to miss because it's outside our door. But still then at 8 p.m. on Sunday night, it was absolutely pumping. People were out on the streets enjoying themselves. Even with the sort of event program wrapping up, there was still such a sense of community there, and it was great to see. I know this was a very significant cost. As Councillor Cedric mentioned, this was funded by the state government. While I'm sure we all appreciate that funding from COVID, I wouldn't be too laudatory of them because we did miss out on we got $500,000 and missed out on $5 billion in the West Connects Fund as a COVID-affected community. So I won't be thanking them too much for this until they remedy that. Honestly, grave injustice to our community. It was money that was supposed to go to every community in hard lockdown. That's what they said in the announcement. And then lo and behold, Georges River and Bayside miss out. It's just not fair. But look, back to this event. This was obviously a very large-scale event. It was very expensive. I don't think anyone here can really say that we can do that on an ongoing basis, and particularly the sort of monthly basis that I think the community would like to see. But I don't think we need these sort of, we don't need a huge event every month. But I do think the closure of Bay Street on an ongoing basis for something like a community market, like you see in Glebe, for example, is a great idea, and I really think this is a really good thing to push. We've shown that it is practical to close this street on a weekend. The city doesn't shut down, things keep working, so hopefully we can lobby the state government and get their concurrence to make this work. Thank you, Madam Mayor, again.
thank you, Councillor McDougall. Are there any further speakers? Councillor Barlow.
I'll just congratulate your mayoral minute, and yes, it was a great day. I was there on the Saturday. And I echo Councillor Muscat that yes, there should be other awards, and the new councillors wouldn't have been to the Food and Wine Festival at Memorial Park. That was brilliant, except we got our car locked in, but it was brilliant, and I think that's something that we should be looking at, and we're saving all that money because it's on our own land. And if that's something I'm suggesting, because the 500,000, I don't know where you're going to find it. The government gives it to us, great. Maybe we should lobby for that as well. But anyway, it was a great day, a great 2 days, but I only got there for the Saturday.
Thank you, Councillor Barlow, and you'll be pleased to hear that on our events calendar is the Food and Wine Festival for October. So, yeah, it should be lovely. Thank you. All right, no further discussion. All those in favour say aye. Declare it carried. Against? Declare it carried. Now move to mayoral minute 7.3. This is in relation to the waste conference. It's just a summary. I'm not going to read it, but just so I attended with the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Scott Morrissey, Councillor Andrew Souness, Councillor Greta Werner, the General Manager and the Director of City Presentation, the Manager of Waste and Cleansing Services and the Coordinator of Waste Avoidance and Resource Recovery. So this is one of the big conferences for waste. It's a national conference, and I'm sure my fellow councillors who attended would agree we learnt a lot about waste, particularly as this term of council we will be having to look at our waste contracts and processes, and looking at a number of initiatives such as green bins across Bayside, and so it was a really valuable experience to be able to participate, and we were very proud of two of our staff as well, Joe Logiaco and Dr. Patricia Chamberlain, who presented on behalf of Bayside Council and really did us proud. So just want to pass on. That is our report from my fellow councillors and I into what we did each day and some of the things we learnt about. Is there any discussion? No discussion. I move the mayoral minute be adopted. All those in favour say aye. Against? Declare it carried. Thank you, councillors. That brings us to item 8, which is items by exception. And so there are some items we will, which will come out because we have speakers to them. I'll leave all the motions out, but at the moment, this is what I have, and then I will go round the table to see if any other councillors would like to withdraw anything. So currently we will leave 10.1 and 10.2. We have to leave 11.3 because some of us have a interest in those. So they're the ones that we need to pull out. Are there any others that council, besides the motions, which will stay? I'll just go around the room. Is there anything you would like to keep out for discussion? Councillor Morrissey, Councillor Councillor Muscat, Councillor Fadell, Councillor Jansen, Councillor Naji, Councillor Saranowski, Councillor Werner, Councillor Wada, Councillor Barlow.
CS 22010.
Which one's that in 11 point what?
11.1.
Yep.
CS 22010. And then 11.3. CWA 22.007.
Okay. So, thank you, Councillor Barlow. Councillor Hannah?
No, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Douglas?
Did you say 10.1 already?
Yes.
11.1, CS 22.009.
Great. We'll pull out all of 11.1.
Thank you.
Councillor McDougall?
10.9, Scarborough and Bexley tennis courts.
Thank you. Councillor Sedrak? Okay. All right, that we'll pull out those items, and then we will now move that the remaining items, other than those called out, be adopted by moving the following motion of multiple items. Can I just clarify, Councillor McDougall, you're referring to the response to question? There's no discussion to questions. Did you want to ask another question? Okay. Thank you, Councillor McDougall. Okay, so therefore that we are moving all other items in the business paper. Can I have a mover? Councillor Jansen, second Councillor Morrissey. All those in favour say aye. Against, declare it carried. Yes, the procedural motion. So that was for the procedural motion. And then we'll move that, that the remaining items other than those called out above be adopted by moving the following motions. So,
Madam Mayor, are you excluding to the ones that are being spoken to?
yes.
Oh, so they're not, it's just that they're not listed, that was all. It's okay.
Yeah, 10.1. Yeah, they're on there. Yeah. All right. So, so they're all on the screen. So, it was moved by Councillor Morrissey, second by Councillor Jansen. All those in favour say aye. Against, I declare that carried. This now takes us to the public forum. Members of the public. So number 9, public forum. Members of the public who have applied to speak at the meeting will shortly be invited to address the meeting. So we have a number of speakers tonight dealing with items 10.1, 12.1, 12.2 and 12.6. Speakers are advised that a warning bell will sound when only 1 minute of speaking time remains. Speakers who are joining the meeting via the Teams app are to have their video off and microphone muted until I invite you to speak. Speakers will be removed from Teams once the item has concluded. You can then watch the remainder of the meeting on Bayside Council's YouTube page. For those speaking who are joining the meeting by phone, please use the asterisk button and the number 6 on your phone's keypad to mute and unmute your phone. Speakers are reminded to keep communication factual, polite and professional, and to use appropriate language and tone. Do not use any defamatory or derogatory marks. Defamation laws apply to addresses in public forum. Due to the number of public speakers, I'm going to limit all speakers to 3 minutes. So we start with item 10.1. So this is the 2021-22 quarterly budget review statement for the quarter ended 31st of March 2022. 3 people have registered to address the meeting. I now invite the first speaker, Mrs. Maria Ellenson, affected neighbour for the officer recommendation. Is Mrs. Ellenson here? Thank you. Please come up. Are you speaking for? So that, just noting, councillors, that there's a change to what was previously advised. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to address Council, Mayor and Councillors. Before I continue, I wish to acknowledge the traditional owner of the country throughout Australia and their continuing connection to land, sea and community. I pay my respect to them, their cultures, their elders past, present and emerging. The statements I'm about to present to you come from the orders made by Chief Justice of the Land and Environment Court, Justice Preston, in May 2022 on the proceedings in relation to costs of the Gardiner Park matter. These are available on the public record and I recommend councillors to review them. I am satisfied that the proceedings have been brought in public interest and that in particular circumstances in order for the payment of costs against the unsuccessful applicant, the friends should not be made. 26. Although the 3 grounds pleaded in the amended summons were ultimately unsuccessful, this did not mean that the friends' case was weak. The 3 grounds run at the hearing were reasonably arguable and there is nothing in the judgment to suggest otherwise. 5.8. I do not find that the friends otherwise acted unreasonably in bringing the applications for interlocutory injunction relief. As the friends contended, the council accepted that at least one of the grounds raised a serious question to be tried. 55. Each ground raised difficult issues of law and fact, including the proper construction and application of statutory provisions. Mayor, councillors, there always was a chance you would lose the court case, and yet you knowingly proceeded. If the friends were successful, this would have accumulated even more costs than the ones outlined in your budget. The community tried everything before it took Bayside Council to court. Court was the community's last resort. There was petitions, complaint letters, a cry out for consultation. And even during the court proceedings in the past year, you have been asked multiple times by your community to consult with us, to listen, to stop court actions, talk and to look at issues raised. Other councils probably would have avoided court exactly for these reasons. It is expensive, it is a waste of ratepayers' money and doesn't solve issues and disregards valid concerns from a community you leave not consulted with in the first place. Instead, you spend money on top barristers to fight your own community, whom you have failed to consult with in the first place. After you ignored your own business case by smart connections that clearly stated that Gardiner Park is not a suitable location, all of the residents' concerns are now reality. The park, charm is lost. You have erected 6-meter high fencing, the trees are impacted, you have created a heat island, microplastic pollution, strong odor from toxic rubber crumb, and so on. 7 million spent on community funding on 2 soccer clubs, created a single-use park for the sole beneficiaries, created a new floodway, ponding with multiple issues, and you expose residents and players to a toxic chemical untested in Australian heat.
Can I just remind you that there's a number
I'm coming-
of... No,
I'm coming to the point.
Excuse me. There are a number of accusations and assumptions made, so please finish what you want to say and close off.
Yeah, I'm coming to the point here. So your own business case states that the work involves significant diversion works and detention works that are likely to cost in excess of 3.5 million. Hours of use may be limited.
Thank you. That'd be time.
That wasn't 3 minutes, wasn't it?
The clock is on.
I
Thank
was
you.
told I had 5 minutes today, so I prepared for 5 minutes.
Because of the number of speakers, I made the ruling it was 3 minutes. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, I now invite the second speaker in relation to 10.1, Mr Garnet Brownbill, interested resident against the officer recommendation. Thank you very much. All right, councillors, thank you very much. We will now move on to Speaker for Mrs Catriona Carver, interested resident against the officer recommendation. Is Mrs Carver online? Hello,
Yes.
Mrs Carver, welcome. Please go ahead.
Yes, hello. And welcome. Thank you for letting me speak. Obviously, many of the councillors are new since we spoke last time about Gardiner Park issues. To keep it brief, just reading the impact of Gardiner Park legal proceedings, it appears it was written before the costs were awarded, the costs of May 22. So that report then doesn't reflect the results of the costs that were actually dismissed. Well, I may not be accurate, but basically the costs weren't, the Friends weren't awarded the costs. It was dismissed. And the reason is that there's actually 5 reasons why. We were a community association, and in a community association, you can take your council to court. Even though we lost, the judge said that we were a definite community association. We had the community, the environment at our heart, and we also had love of Gardiner Park at our heart. And during that time, we actually found out so much about Gardiner Park, it actually deepened our interest in the heritage of the park. So it does actually make us sad that we can't enjoy the park as much. It is a shame that there were so many costs. We had a pro bono barrister and a pro bono lawyers. We are a small funded company, but at the same time, we also made a huge impact. And on Monday night, we spoke to the New South Wales Chief Scientist team, and I will report on that later. But it's just a shame that I read some of the report to say that we didn't actually cause that many delays or variations. Perhaps that could be clarified. Also, the government grant wasn't specifically for a synthetic field, as it says. The government grant was actually for the community, and there were actually other things the community wanted, which were lights and better parks, but the community didn't ask for a synthetic field, so that popped up some other time. But the budget, I think the park just wasn't very well designed, and that's why we're seeing lots of faults from now on. Look, thank you very much for your time, and if you ever want to, you can always contact the Friends of Gardiner Park for information, and I would just like to clarify some of those points, so thank you for your time.
I wasn't elected during the period where all of this took place, but I am part of the community that was around it, though somewhat distracted by other matters at the time. I guess my question is, this is a public interest lawsuit. My understanding is that the community consultation would have cost a lot less money than $440,000 defending a court case. Was community consultation done before the park's development?
Look, I appreciate it's you weren't on the previous council, so there's a lot of history, but there's, at this point in time, we're not going to go backwards. There's been a court ruling, so we're now at a situation we're about to, as everyone knows, we're advertising for a reference group now. So I encourage people to put in that expression of interest, and we'll work with the community in order to, look at ways that the park can be upgraded.
Just
The
a point,
reference
point
group.
of order.
Yes, Councillor.
Sorry, I haven't finished.
That's point
I
of
do
order.
have a
So
point of order.
Councillor Douglas, you need to sit down when there's a point of order.
Now, what we're actually voting on, which is
Sorry, could I just ask you to turn your microphone off, please? Thank you, Councillor.
what we've got in front of us is 10.1, which is financial 21-22 quarterly budget. I think the question is not related whether we had community consultation. We're not discussing Gardiner Park. We are simply today looking at the budget review statement for the quarter ended 31st of March 22. So keep your discussion strictly to that, please.
Thank you, Councillor Wada. There's a point of order, and Councillor Wada is correct that it is about the budget, so we won't be going into discussions about Gardiner Park.
Okay, I just was going to reply to your point about the reference group. Look, I know the community are hurting. I think the reference group is a great idea, but it's come way too late. And so there is still a lot of work to be done to heal the social licence that has been destroyed in the community, which is much bigger than the $440,000 worth of ratepayers' money that was spent on this court case.
Thank you, Councillor Douglas. Okay, is there any further discussion? Councillor Hannah?
Yeah, just a question. I'm just wondering with these reports, do we ever get a figure for doubtful debts shown in these reports?
I might refer to the Director, please.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor. So we usually bring back a report on doubtful debts towards the end of the year, so June, where typically we'll bring one back to council, where we will be flagging the outstanding debts that are needing council to consider writing off, or to make a provision for debts that are likely to be unrecoverable. And we do that just prior to closing the books for the year.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Councillor Barlow?
Just a few comments. Yes, it is a lot of money. We have a tight budget, but this isn't the first time that someone's, in the public interest, taken the council to court. Back in 1999, Rockdale Council, Dominic Wykenak, who's now classed as a vexatious litigator because the amount of times he took us, Rockdale, to court about a car park. There's only one person here that will remember it, which is Councillor Savranowski, before anyone else's time. We had a payment plan for him. I actually don't know if it's still going, because we did do it. It was $196,000 in 1999. That is a lot of money. So it is a worry. I don't know where we go with here, but I think someone said the court costs weren't awarded. I don't know, I couldn't catch it all, but it is a concern for everyone, the people that went to court, believing that they were correct. And that's what it is. It's all about the $440,000 that we've got to look at. Our budget is tight, but anyway, we have had a case before, but we did recover some money, but I'm actually not sure how much.
Thank you, Councillor Barlow. Is there any further discussion? All right, there being no further discussion, I put the motion on the screen, moved by Councillor Wada, seconded by Councillor Cedric. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against? I declare the motion carried. This takes us to item 12.1, where we have 3 people registered to address the meeting. This notice of motion is the New South Wales Chief Scientist's report on environmental and health impacts. And the first speaker in relation to this is Mrs. Maria Ellenson, affected neighbour for the motion.
Thank you. Can I say I'm just a bit shaken what just happened? Please ask not to be yelled at and be treated respectfully. Thank you. I'm in support of the motion. Council has implemented 6 synthetic soccer fields within 3 kilometres of Rockdale Station, took natural green spaces away, has created heat islands, pollution, and has been failing to provide reassurance to residents and players that the fields are safe to play on and live next to. Multiple issues such as toxic off-gassing in Australian heat, microplastic pollution of our waterways through leaking of toxic rubber crumb, increase of noise played on synthetic surface seem not to have been considered when implementing these fields. When looking at the folder with information provided to the community through Bayside Council from the synthetic field installer Politan about synthetic grass surfaces, you can see a hazard checklist, and the boxes are ticked for toxic gases, fumes, environment, and chemicals. Workers who install these fields have to wear PPE due to toxic fumes, yet next day we let our children play on it and residents live right next to it. You install these fields not applying any precautionary principle. The ECHA, the European Chemical Agency, recommended the ban of rubber crumb, and countries like the Netherlands and other countries are fading out their synthetic rubber crumb fields. These fields include more than 300 chemicals, some of them proven to be highly toxic, such as zinc, PFAS, and so on. No studies have ever been conducted what this toxic cocktail does to people who live close to these fields and inhale the toxic rubber dust on a daily basis. IKEA banned carpets including PFAS, but council is installing a large PFAS carpet in form of synthetic field right behind our houses. Multiple residents have developed health concerns which has been reported, and council is ignoring this to this date. Council, where is your duty of care to respond to reports made? An article from a leading expert shows the result of a PAH which are continuously released from rubber crumb through evaporation, and he concludes that the quantity of toxic substances it releases when heated does not make it safe for public health. Dear Council, as you are well aware, research, especially in the Australian context, is needed, but research from overseas indicates already how bad synthetic fields are for the environment and our health. This is one of the reasons the Chief Scientist is investigating. I am for a motion to create a report to be provided to the relevant committee outlining the findings and actions, but would go further and suggest for Council to now commit to implement all recommendations of the Chief Scientist. Our health and well-being is what is on the line, and it's time to start actioning some of the worrying concerns outlined. In the absence of sufficient reassuring evidence that these fields are safe to live next to, we need to safeguard our communities. And I'm asking you to reverse synthetics in the close proximity to people's homes. Thank you.
Thank you. I now invite Mr. Garnet Brownbill, interested resident, for the motion. Okay, I noted that Mr. Brownbill has chosen not to address the forum. I now invite Ms. Catriona Carver, affected neighbour, for the motion. Thank you, Ms. Carver.
Thank you. And I'd like to thank Councillor Werner for bringing up this topic as a public interest. Again, thank you to the councillors who have looked at this. The New South Wales Chief Scientist became interested because of multiple residential groups around Sydney concerned about grass being turned into synthetic. But one of the issues is heat, and there's been no studies done in Australia. A letter was sent to council and to all councillors in January when we discovered that some of the heat in the fields were over 60 degrees. In fact, some of them measured up to 90 degrees. In the ref for Gardiner Park, it was said that synthetic fields only go up to 60.
I'm sorry, I have to interrupt. Gardiner Park was mentioned, and I have a significant non-pecuniary interest, so I'm going to have to leave the room. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Councillor Werner. I'll just
Apologies.
wait a moment, Ms. Carver.
Certainly.
I note that I don't think so. So I just note that Councillor Werner has left the meeting at 8:14 p.m. Thank you, Ms. Carver. You can continue.
Thank you, and apologies to mention Gardiner Park. If I would have been more cautious in my wording if that was the case. But the issue was heat, and in heat, I don't think that there are any studies in Australia. You may know that I was sent a letter in January this year and discussed the heat in these parks. A bitumen road can be 50 degrees, but a synthetic park can be 65 on exactly the same time. So the Chief Scientist is actually looking at the heat issues, and an email came to us from Aaron Didbin, who's from New South Wales Football. We asked him about the heat, and they are very keen for these guidelines, as there are no recommendations for heat on a synthetic except at 32 degrees. which would be significantly too hot for, I think, the population. So our concern is for residents playing on these fields, young children in particular. So I would like to know that I would like to hope that the guidelines that come through and the recommendations will be adopted as heat guidelines for play when this report comes out. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Carver. Right, as there are no more speakers on this item, we will now deal with the item. There is...
Madam Mayor, I think she's going to stay out, okay, but it's
because
her
it was
notice
mentioned.
of motion,
Yeah.
so you might need a mover and a seconder.
Yes, that's right. So as there are no more speakers, we'll deal. The motion is before you on the screen. As Councillor Werner has left the meeting due to a conflict of interest, is there someone that would like to move and second the motion?
I'll move the motion, please.
So moved by Councillor Douglas. Any second? Thank you, Councillor Hannah. Is there any discussion?
I'm going to give some information about this for the councillors' benefits in case they couldn't hear the other presentations clearly. After significant concerns about the environmental and health impacts of synthetic fields, the New South Wales Planning Minister instigated a comprehensive review by the Chief Scientist in New South Wales, and a final report will be delivered mid this year. As there are currently no Australian standards for synthetic turf fields, meaning regulation is limited at best, we need to step in and protect the safety of our communities. There have been 3 deaths attributed to heat stroke among high school football players in the US in 2020, and an article notes that heat illness during practice or competition is a leading cause of death and disability among US high school athletes. New South Wales football heat policy does not specify the heat for synthetic fields. A caution is referred to for 32 degrees Celsius ambient temperature, but does not mention surface temperatures. Children have been identified as heat vulnerable groups that suffer more from heat injury. Playing soccer on an artificial turf increases the risk of heat stress in young players, according to a study from Hong Kong. Shifting the playing of a winter sport to the summer months in Sydney increases the heat risks. Soccer is a vigorous activity, as we all know. More heat is produced by playing soccer or rugby than by playing cricket. And note that the Sydney Cricket Ground measured 57.6 degrees in one of these articles. Temperatures at local fields have been higher than over 60 degrees Celsius. Those on the sideline who are more comfortable underestimate the heat effects on young players. Fortunately, low-cost temperature instruments can be used to measure surface temperatures, and this information can inform rational decisions about the safety of play. Bayside Council needs to prioritise the safety of our athletes, of our children. Reporting to the relevant committee about any guidelines developed by the Chief Scientist as soon as the report is released is one way we can help improve the safety of our public spaces and council sporting facilities. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Douglas. Are there any other speakers? Councillor Jansen.
Just a question through you, Madam Mayor, to a director. As a matter of due process, wouldn't a report from the New South Wales Chief Scientist that has guidelines for synthetic fields filter down to councillor level anyway? Wouldn't that come through as part of a regulatory process?
General Manager.
Through the Mayor, given that there has been a lot of councillor interest in this subject, we had intended that councillors would be briefed through committee. So tonight's recommendation really reinforces what would be the next natural step towards describing what future facilities might look like in Bayside.
Thank you, General Manager. Councillor Saranowski.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Look, Madam Mayor, can I just say there is no way the former council, Bayside, and this council would ever allow any facilities that would be detrimental to the health of anyone. Now, Madam Mayor, I'm a little bit, I go on facts. I go on with the COVID situation. I listen to the Department of Health, not on conspiracy theories or what could happen, what may happen here or overseas. I go on fact, I too welcome the opportunity for the New South Wales Chief Scientists to bring down a final ruling, because that's why they go to university, that's why they've got all these qualifications. When you go to a doctor, you go to a doctor to give you the best advice. You don't go to someone that's got no qualifications at all. Madam Mayor, can I just say again, there is no way that I as a councillor would ever agree to something that will have a detrimental effect on it. No way. And I can tell you this, look at the elections last Saturday. The United Palmer Party got less than 5% because of all their conspiracy theories. They got less than 5% of the vote because we have total faith in our medical system and the importance of getting the jab, which I have. But, Madam Mayor, I've followed this subject right through from day one to now. And I've made a point of just searching around the other councils. If this is so bad, how come last year the Northern Council voted to install a synthetic field and spend $1.5 million? But at Bayside Council, some of the community members or some of the councillors here today forget to realise that Bayside Council put a moratorium on any new synthetic fields until we get professional experts telling us exactly what, if there are any issues. And that's why I'm supporting the motion on it, and that is, which normally, Councillor Jensen, you are 100% right. When the Chief Scientist brings down the report, which I have total faith in, and that's I'm supporting it because it says once the Chief Scientist comes up with a recommendation or conclusion, it will come back to Council. I can't agree today to, and all due respects to Maria, I have a lot of respect for her, I can't agree to something which she said we should all agree. I don't know what the recommendations are. You jump in the gun. And I'll be scrutinising the Chief Scientists and the engineer, their conclusions. And if I've got time, I'll actually go there and listen to it, because I, as a parent, my son today plays on synthetic fields. Okay, plays on synthetic. There is a synthetic field at Kaima where they play hockey. That's been there for a long, long time. I have never heard of anyone come to me and say, Councillor Zaranowski, I have concerns about the synthetic field at Kaima. They play hockey, and it's more rougher than soccer because you're using the sticks and that. I've never heard anyone. But I stand to be corrected. I'm not an expert. And the Chief Scientists, if they come to the conclusion that these are unsafe, yes, then we have to then therefore address these issues. And as I said, I'm quite happy if we can have a third. I'd love to have my name added to it. That, you know, let's see what the experts say.
Thank you, Councillor Zaranowski. Any other speakers? Councillor Morrison?
Sorry, Madam Mayor, I've just got a slightly different view. I understand what Councillor Zaranowski is saying here, but this is asking for a report on a report that's not yet delivered. One of the speakers was calling for all of the recommendations to be implemented on a report that is not yet delivered, and no formal recommendations has been delivered. So I can't support this motion in its current form. We need to wait. Councillor Zaranowski used the word, we need to wait for the recommendations to come, which is going to be published. And again, I'm supportive of the Chief Scientist and all the findings that are pending, but I don't see any benefit in council resources doing a report on a report. In the report, there will be recommendations. When that report is delivered, we need to form a view as a council on those recommendations. There will be 10, 20, 50, who knows? We don't know how many recommendations they are, and we do not know our position on those recommendations. We don't even know what they are. So this is, respectfully, this is jumping the gun. I'm not going to be supporting this motion. When the report has been delivered, I believe we should be looking at that time, the appropriate council officer experts to look at the recommendation and come to council for us to form a position on those recommendations. As it has been made very clear to everybody in the community, we have a moratorium on no more synthetics right now. Unless it's overturned by this council, that moratorium stays in place. So I'm not supporting this motion.
Councillor Morrissey, so would you like to move an amendment in relation to what you just outlined, that once the report has been released and council officers can overview it, that then...
Yes, I can do that. That that council officers review recommendations contained in the New South Wales Chief Scientist report.
Order, that is actually what the motion is asking for. If the Chief Scientist brings down a 500-page report, I don't think any of us are going to sit here and read a 500-page report on top of our 500 pages of business papers. The whole point of this motion is that we could get a summary, a précis, that goes to committee to expedite the understanding of this in layman's terms for us who are not scientists. That is what it says. It says a report on the report.
Thank you,
That is the
Councillor
normal
Douglas.
process that we use in council. We get a report to bring to committee.
Thank you, Councillor Douglas. Can you pull up the original motion for me,
Yeah,
please? So it's the interpretation of...
It says, a report be provided outlining the findings and actions that are proposed by the New South Wales Chief Scientist. The outlining the findings and actions, we're waiting for it's no reference to recommendations and how the council is going to respond to those recommendations. That's what we need to get to. We don't want staff wasting their time on a report. And I'll sit there and read 500 pages, happy to do it. If people don't want to do that, that's fine. Give me the report, I'll read the recommendations, I'll read the executive summary, and I'll read the 497 pages in between that. But it doesn't say anything about responding to recommendations.
Can I just clarify?
So, Councillor Hannah.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, look, I think probably there's, with all due respect to councillors around the table, I think this is probably being blown up a little bit. This is pretty innocuous. This has got to be given its natural meaning. The motion's clear, that a report be provided to the relevant committee outlining the findings and actions that are proposed by the New South Wales Chief Scientist and Engineer following the release of the report from the New South Wales Chief Scientist and Engineer on the independent review. Nothing's going to happen until the report is handed down by the Chief Scientist. This is simply calling for a report following that report.
Thank you, Councillor Hannah. So can I suggest that we say that that a report be provided to the relevant committee summarising the findings, the findings of the New South Wales Chief Scientist report following its release. Are you happy with that? Councillor McDougall?
Can I just say, I mean, this is all quite frankly ridiculous, and Councillor Werner running out, you know, this is all just about Gardiner Park, let's be honest. Like, seriously, we all know this, like, trying to dance around this is just silly.
Order, please. I don't actually agree with that. This is actually about the health of our children.
That's your opinion. That's
It's the health of our children. I'm a mother of
that's
soccer
not a point
sons
of
No,
order.
thank you.
area.
Sit down, Councillor Douglas. It's not
That's
a point.
clearly argumentative. But look, this report is going to be done by the Chief Scientist, and what I can tell you will be in that report is some findings and some recommendations. I think those can be reported to the committee. I don't think they need to be summarised. I trust the Chief Scientist. I think they'll express them in appropriate terms that all of us as elected officials can understand and respond to. If we can't, that's probably a bit of a problem, but I think we can go from there. So honestly, I don't have a problem with this. I think we should consider whatever the Chief Scientist comes up with. If there are issues, I'm sure there'll be recommendations for councils to action anyway. But yeah, that's my opinion.
Yeah, well, the way it sits now has been accepted by Councillor Douglas, and it is the executive report that comes, and for those that then wish to read further, and it's something that council will have a responsibility to explore once that comes out. All right, I've got a motion in
Right
front
of reply, please.
Yes, right of reply.
I would like to add Councillor Saravanowski's name to the motion, as he suggested. Okay. Look, I just really don't think this is actually just about Gardiner Park. Like, we have a very large number of synthetic fields in this LGA, and I am a mum of 2 soccer-playing kids, and I do worry about the health impacts of synthetic fields. I do worry about the heat. I do worry about the plastic rubber crumb that I have twice had complaints made to residents when they've sent video footage of it being washed down the drain at Memorial Field when it was not appropriate maintenance. There are concerns here, and this is not radical, this is not just Gardiner Park, this is community-wide, and it's not just Bayside. There's a movement away from synthetic fields across New South Wales and wider internationally. So please, let's not just always vilify the Friends of Gardiner Park, please. Let's take our responsibility for the health and safety of our community properly and not be so defensive and take everything so personally. Thank you.
Okay, therefore we have there being no further discussion, I put the motion on the screen, moved by Councillor Douglas, seconded by Councillor Hannah. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against, declare it carried. That takes us to 12.2, notice of motion, events program review, Ramadan Festival, Easter celebration and Brighton Festival. One person has registered to address the meeting. Or is it two? Two people, sorry. I invite the following person, Mr. Committee Anari, interested citizen for the motion.
Greetings to the Bayside Council, Madam Mayor, Dr. Christina Curry, and the councillors. May I first digress to acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land, the Gadigal and the Aboriginal people of the Eora Nation, whose spirit and ancestors will always remain with us and the land, our Mother Earth. My name is Committee Anari. I'm the chairperson of the Church Council for St Andrew's Uniting Church at Brighton. I'm also an elder and a worship convener. I am speaking to the motion 12.2, titled Events Program Review, Ramadan Festival, Easter Celebration, and Brighton Festival. I am speaking particularly for the Easter celebration part of the motion. In all the years I've been living in Cogra Rockdale and attended my current home church, there's never been a major council-sponsored event that I could remember for Easter. For Christians, believers, and people of faith, this is the most important day in their calendar. We witnessed the successful Ramadan Festival and the Brighton Festival, and we thank the Council for their vision and support for these events. But there is nothing in place for Easter. I implore the Bayside Council to seriously consider and implement an Easter celebration event where people of different denominations, faith, and ethnicity can interact and share fellowship. I keep hearing the phrases that we have a multicultural society with multinational and intergenerational churches in our state. Yet, we do not have an event where people of faith could gather to share and continue fellowship outside of their own churches. This would be a great way for Bayside Council to interact and work together with the local churches to better serve our community, both in their secular and spiritual needs. May I take this opportunity to thank the chairperson and Bayside Council for allowing me the opportunity to speak in this forum. May God's blessing be upon the Bayside Council in their discernment in addressing the numerous matters brought to them. And a good evening to everyone here tonight.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nari, for speaking tonight. I now invite Mr. Moses Hamka, interested resident for the motion, who will be speaking on the phone. We'll just wait a moment as we try to make contact. Thank you, Mr Soot. Therefore, Mr Hamkar is not contactable at the moment. So there is a motion before us. Is there a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Cedrak, seconded by Councillor McDougall. Is there any discussion?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First of all, before I thank the appropriate people, I just want to say what we're looking at here, ladies and gentlemen, through you, Madam Chair, this notice of motion is looking at the events program in regards to reviewing it, in regards to a report back to Council about the Ramadan Festival, Easter celebration and the Bryden Festival. And I want to take great thanks to our Speaker. It was a pleasure to be with you on the weekend, and also the Speaker that couldn't attend, Mr Hamkar as well, who gave a lot of advice and feedback. I want to thank the staff who had helped assist with this motion, as well as Councillor Savranovsky, as well as you, Madam Mayor, and in particular the advice from our local MPs, Mr Ron Honey and Mr Steve Camper. It was amazing to have their feedback on this. How this came about. At the beginning of the month, or at the end of last month, we all went down to Ramadan Festival. Amazing event. I want to thank the staff for it. When we all gathered there, one of the local shopkeepers said to me, "This is an amazing event, Paul. We need to, one, do it every single year. We thank you for doing it every year. Make it bigger and better." He said, "You need to expand it, so that whether expanding it through the shops or they're expanding it through the stalls, whether it be putting in a different location," he was about expanding it, number one. Number two, he also said, we have the Ramadan Festival, we have Chinese New Year and Lunar New Year, we have these beautiful festivals, why don't we have something for Easter? And so this is what I sat with him and I said, what do you think about that? And this is how this came about. As well as we knew that the Bryden Festival was coming, the Streets Alive, and that's how this sparked about. Madam Mayor, I raise here to commend Bayside Council on the amazing events that it does every year, especially Ramadan. The Ramadan Festival is one of the highlights in our annual calendar. It is a vibrant celebration that attracts people from all cultures, all ages, showcasing our diversity, and it's an example of bringing Bayside together. It was amazing. The annual festival has been a great success in Wall Street. However, like a lot of the shopkeepers, it's now starting to outgrow Wall Street. And so, again, I'm not advocating for this to leave Wall Street. What I'm saying is it time for us to look at, one, extending this event for 2 nights or 3 nights, or what have you, on the weekend, so Friday, Saturday, Sunday, that would be one option, but also maybe looking at it, maybe moving it to another alternative site, such as a park, where there's more parking, open space, something where we could have more of a picnic style, rides and entertainment. I think we were saying something about camel rides, get the Arabian Nights happening as well in Ramadan Festival. I know there's a big... Camel... That's right. That's right.
Camel 2 ways.
Camel. Oh, Mark loves that one. You like it. Anyway, the road closure I know is an issue in Wall Street, and it cost us approximately $30,000 and a lot of organisation. I guess what the motion here, part of the Ramadan one, looks at, number one, is that council investigate and consider extending the festival to 3 consecutive nights rather than just a Saturday, number one. Number two, that council examine the feasibility of widening this footprint, whether it be still at Wall Street. I've got no problem. I love having it at Wall Street. I think having it at Wall Street is amazing for the Rockdale community. Councillor Awada has been hounded, I think, for about 14 years about doing more in Wall Street. So I'm not against having it in Wall Street. Maybe this can be an option to look at other options in regards to Wall Street at a different location. So that's that section part of the motion. Point 3 looks at Easter celebration. Bayside has been a diverse community, and we take pride in our diverse nature. And like the speaker mentioned, one of the things that would be wonderful is to see Easter recognised in Bayside Council. Now, whether it's a spiritual event, whether it's Easter hat parade, whether it's Easter bunny, whether it be getting in a park and having all the denominations, all the different churches come together, having a picnic, having stalls, having an animal farm, or having something small. I know Councillor Savranovsky loves the King Street precinct down there at Rockdale, so I'm not advocating this to be only for Fifth Ward. What I'm saying is, let's look at where the best location is. I know closing a street is quite expensive. I know it's better to look at doing it in a park, or a street like King Street in Rockdale. It's a beautiful closed street. It's got some beautiful laneways. We've done stuff there in the past. Is it an option to have a look there? I'm not saying this is something that we must do right now. All I'm asking is council to look at some of these options, to bring this back to council and committee, and let's have a think about it. If it's possible, let's do it.
Thank you.
The third, sorry, I'll be quick, sorry. And the third one is in regards to the Bryden Festival. Look, it's already been spoken about, so I won't take too much of your attention on that. Again, I know there's a massive cost. I think what I want to add to that, though, is when we're looking at any event, and we know Bryden is the jewel of Bayside, or one of many, but if we look at a future event like Bryden Festival, and it was always there for a long period of time, that council look at a feasibility study. I know it's going to cost $500,000, and a lot of these events like Ramadan, and Councillor Savranovsky always highlights this point, Ramadan and these Easter celebrations, why don't we look, and it's in the motion, to look at two things: grants, fundraising, grants, federal and state, and the MP state, Steve Camper, brought this up. And the last one is corporate sponsorship. I think we as a council don't do this enough. And when I was down at the Ramadan Festival, there was a member from the Arab Bank, and he said he would pay excess of $5,000 to sponsor something there. All I'm saying is, part of this motion, let's look at other avenues to bring these festivals. If people want festivals, we're talking about $500,000 to close Bay Street. That's a ridiculous amount of money. But once we get all that finding, and let's look at some options. Do we look at other options? Do we look at banks? Do we look at shops? How much are we charging the stalls? I think what I'm asking here, ladies and gentlemen, is for this to be brought back to council, to look at corporate sponsorship, feasibility. Is it possible? How much is it going to cost? Estimated dates, and what does this look like? It could be small, it could be big. The point is, we need to unify in this, and it doesn't have to be just in Ward 5. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cedrak. Councillor Jansen.
Thank you, Councillor Cedrak, and thank you to the speaker, is it Mr Anari? I'm not sure if you're aware that council does do a quite successful multicultural festival around the East Lakes area. It's been rebranded as a Spring Fair, but I believe we've already endorsed our 2022-23 events program, and I'm not against looking into the feasibility of a future events calendar, but I think we need to back that up by our ABS data, demographic data, and what the community were also saying to us as part of feedback for the community strategic plan. I do like the idea of investigating sponsorship, but having experience in that sector, that is really time consuming for staff to research, manage, write guidelines about sponsorship based on ICAC principles. So it's often a good thought about attracting sponsorship, but to actually get that sponsorship and go through the checklist is quite time consuming. But yes, I'm in support of the investigation and feasibility into our future events fairly across the municipality. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jansen. Councillor Naji.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor, and I agree with, and I understand, I agree with Councillor Cedrak, the intent or the spirit of his notice of motion. While he was speaking, I turned around and the Director of City Performance, which my heart bled for him. He took his glasses, he put his hand in, scratching his head, wondering how he's going to find the money where this council is in a very tight financial viability. And I really feel sorry for him. But on another note, I must say it on record, he is one of, in my opinion, since 2004, he's been one of the most experienced director in his financial. Him and all his team, I commend them. They always, but I just could see the stress on his face trying to say where we're going to find the money. Having said that, I'd love to have events for Easter, for Ramadan, for anything, for what we've had on the weekend, Street Alive, and what Councillor Muscat, we'd love to have it in every ward, whether it's second ward and that, but I want councillors to come up with ways of how we're going to create or come up with the financials, or the funding, I should say. No one has said where we're going to come up with the funding. Let me take you about Ramadan. Ramadan, prior to COVID, we used to have it 3 nights a week, every week. Now, we did have a feasibility study, we did have an information session, we did all of these things, and we decided that what we would do. Now, go to Bankstown, which is known to be the biggest every night Ramadan Festival, and it attracts tens of thousands of people from all nationalities, all religion, and it's a great atmosphere. But they do charge the stalls, from the experience we've had when we visited Bankstown, how they do it before we started our own. And the other day, I saw the Honourable Markure giving funding of $1 million to Canterbury Bankstown to keep that event going. And maybe we need to do the same, keep chasing our state and federal, because we don't have the funding. I'd love to have all events in all around our LGA, but I need councillors to put a cap and say, okay, well, how are we going to find the funding? I don't want Mr. Momo to have a stressful attack or an anxiety attack. How can he find funding? There is no funding. Now, thank God that the state government, which we don't thank enough, has given us funding for a lot of things that happened in our LGA in the last 3-4 years. And I pray to God, doesn't matter which government in the next year, whether it's Labor or Liberal, that they still continue to give funding so we can spend it on our community. So I'm all for all events. I won't be voting against any event. When it comes to community events, I'll put my 2 hands up. But we've got to be realistic and don't give false hope to the community. Don't give them false hope that every year we're going to have the... I'd love to. I'd want to, as a councillor. But when we don't have the funds, where are we going to get the funds? Let's not kid ourselves. Don't give the community false hope, false oxygen, and when the time comes, oh, I'm sorry, we can't do it. We want to be serious about that. Let's have an information session and see how we can create funding with the corporate sponsors. I mean, the Arab Bank, it's good, and I hope that person, with respect, they've just closed their branch in Rockdale. They're closing their branch. They've only got 1 branch. I hope we can get that $5,000 in advance, But seriously, I've been brought up as I'm not going to say a successful businessman, but I put my corporate hat on. We got to think about money. If we don't have money, we won't be able to do anything. And thank you, Mr. Momo. You just keep trying hard and see where we can get money from other section, whatever they call it now, 7-Eleven or whatever. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Naji. Are there any other Councillor Saranowski?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, what Councillor Naji said is 100% right. The Arab Bank has closed. I actually complained to them over the weekend. Look, I don't have a problem with the concept of what Councillor Cedric has moved in relation to having functions and that, and I don't believe we'll be able to achieve it in the 2022-2023 calendar month of events, maybe the 2023 and 2024 event, because at the end of the day, what Councillor Naji said is all a matter of money. And I'm all in favour of organising community events to bring our community together. Now, in relation to the religious events, we do have World Prayer Day, where all the religious organisations all get together and as a service. So we do have that. Now, so maybe the new church at Kings Road can sort of get involved in the in that celebration. In relation to the Ramadan, what I was going to suggest, and I understand what Michael was saying, in terms of the costing, that if we could look at, as part of the report, and I don't expect the report to be back next week, that in, say, the Rockdale Sleep, we do know I've got to be careful because of my family-owned property, but if there's a special rate levy that we used to have, and many years ago we had radio station 2GB, that right-wing station, come to Rockdale in King Street, and that was funded not by the ratepayers of Rockdale, it was funded by the shopkeepers of Rockdale, because there's a special levy fund in there. If we can have a look at that, because whilst it's a great event, I don't believe that the ratepayers should be funding an event which brings everybody together, but the main beneficiaries are the shopkeepers, because I was at the Ramadan Day, it was terrific. But if we can have a look at, if we are going to go down the path, that if we were to put in a, I think there's funding, sorry, there's in the general revenue rates, I stand to be corrected, there's money that's, we could maybe use that. And if we can't, and if we don't have the special rate funding for Brighton, then we should look at possibly introducing it, because at the end of the day, if you went to all the shopkeepers and said, we're going to increase the rates by a certain amount, and it's not a lot of money, and it gets built up over a number of years. It's like the car parking levy. It gets built up over a number of years, then we can use those funds, because if you explain to them, because everyone in Brighton and the shopkeepers all love it, but when you tell them the $500,000 costs them, they all sort of look at you, and they all realise you can't do it every year, because there's no, like, you know, when you get a ratepayer rings you up and says, look, I need the pothole, and there's quite a few, and Colin's gone grey over it, with the potholes because of the heavy rain. And when if you say to a resident, I'm sorry, but we don't have any money to fix up your pothole, but we've got $500,000 down at Brighton. In terms of the Easter Festival, yeah, that's great, but we need to can't be just Bayside Council. We actually need to get all the religious organisations that we have on the database to get together to actually run it. And that's where you get the community behind. We used to have in King Street, yes, those who were interested, the Chamber of Commerce used to run Christmas time. They used to have animals, fairy floss and rides for the young kids. But the biggest problem was, it was a great success, but every single shop in King Street was closed. And it was just like, what was the point of doing it in King Street when the business community didn't get behind it? And that's why the Rockdale Council decided it's great, it's good for the chamber, but if the shopkeepers don't support it, then why are we doing it at an expense to the ratepayer? So I think if we are going to do something in the Easter celebration, we've got to get all the religious organisations together and say, you guys run it, this is the budget, can chip in on the in relation to the running of it. Plus, we go and see my mate Mark Curray and say, listen, you're the Minister for Multiculturalism, or my best mate, Mr. Steve Camper, who's the opposition spokesman for multiculturalism, and the next Premier is Chris Minns, which happens to be the lecturer next door. Can you support us in terms of funding? Because there are funding out there. It's a matter of us chasing it. In terms of corporate sponsors, over the years, we've had the odd small amount. We've got to tap into the BEC, because they've got all the big players, the airport, ports. This is where I think, this is like, unfortunately, Paul, I don't think we can do it in this financial year. We need a lot of time and effort where a staffman will have to go out and physically, maybe you, Madam Mayor, and the General Manager, go out to the ports. And I think we've got a good working relationship with Sydney airports, but it doesn't necessarily have to be on this side of the ledger. It can be on the other side. You know, like you've got areas like, I actually enjoyed the Mascot Fair. I forgot about them, and I'm delighted to hear it's on again. Because that on the other side of the bridge, which we're all one happy family, it's great. It was good, and that's good, you know. And then, but the bottom line is, in terms of our financial, we've got to be financially responsible to make sure that it stacks up and it doesn't affect the day-to-day running of this council, which is roads, rubbish, and parks, and providing customer service. We've got to make sure that's not affected in any way.
Thank you, Councillor Saranowski. Are there any other speakers? Councillor McDougall.
I know we've been talking about this for a while now, so I'll try to keep my comments brief. But I just echo Councillor Jansen and Councillor Saranowski that it's all well and good to talk about corporate sponsorship. There's usually a lot of noise and then very little cash stumped up at the end of the day. I don't think it's really a solution, unfortunately. You know, it plugs a hole of a few $1,000s in things that cost, you know, tens and hundreds of thousands, unfortunately. In terms of the Ramadan Festival, as Councillor Nagy noted, this did start as a multi-day event. I think it was reduced to one, largely due to the impacts of COVID. And I'm looking forward to that coming back. And I would just like to say, in terms of the cost of these things, I don't think it is an investment. We're not going to, you know, there's a Howland Streets, which, you know, Ramadan Nights at Lakemba is a fantastic event. I try to go every year. It's awesome. Tens of thousands of people flood the streets every night. It's a great night out. There's a real sense of community there. And it started, you know, organically to some extent, but it then grew to be supported by the council, and that's been a long-term partnership there. But it grew to the size it is now, not in a day or a week or a year. It took decades, and unless we're willing to hold these events, you know, we've got to admit Wall Street is small. We don't have an ideal location for this at the moment, but I think we need to keep supporting this because it's not going to become an event that we can attract $1 million of state government support of. I don't think this year or next year, but down the track, I think it has the potential to be a really big sort of Sydney event, and I do think that these things are worth supporting and worth funding. In terms of, you know, new events, I think they're always worth looking at. But I will say, in terms of what Councillor Saranowski was saying, that we really do need to make sure that there is that these are viable. You know, we need to do the investigation behind these. There's no point putting on an event, spending tens of thousands of dollars, and then sadly no one's showing up. Like markets and things, you often end up with, you know, a bunch of flea stores, unfortunately, when these things aren't given the appropriate support and the time that they need to make them work. So I just want to make sure that we continue to, you know, look at this as part of our broader events calendar. We have some great events, you know, many coming up this year, the Mascot Food and Wine Festival, the Spring Fest at East Lakes. These things are all great events that bring the community together, but we do need to put some real thought behind the events we're supporting and what we're spending money on locally, and that we're playing to our area's strengths.
Thank you, Councillor McDougall. Councillor Werner.
Yeah, so I also just a few brief comments. I think it is really great if we do focus on events. I just want to share a story from the festival on the weekend that I was approached by someone you know, from the crowd who said, Bayside is the best council, we don't have this kind of thing in our area, and so on, and they were so happy they actually came from outside the Bayside Council area to experience the street festival. So that was really wonderful to hear that. I support doing something for Easter. I think we already do things for Christmas. So I think I agree that there really should be a needs assessment, as Councillor Jansen said, because on one hand we don't want to hold things where no one shows up. So on the other hand, we also don't want to just cater to one or two communities. So I think it would be really good to have an assessment of all the communities, and also to what extent that like how vibrant that event would be. So to what extent does that community want to take part in and maybe own that event? So obviously Ramadan has been hugely successful, so I think that that definitely should have more of our support. But maybe if I could propose an amendment, and if we maybe take out the thing about sponsorship, because if that really is a huge investment of council's time, and we would only get a few $1,000, then maybe that could be something we could take out of that motion. But otherwise it basically just says that we investigate, the council investigates those things, and I think there's no harm in investigating it. Thank you.
Do you accept the amendment?
No. With respect, I think let's leave it in there. Let's see how it. If sponsorship works, then it works. If it doesn't work, at the end of the day, council staff can spend 10 minutes on it or 100 minutes. Like it's one of those things.
Councillor Barlow?
Oh, look, I just, it worries me one of the wordings that we have Ramadan over 3 nights. We did start it with every Saturday night for the month. Then we cut it back to the 1 because we actually couldn't afford it. I mean, the first one I found this wonderful cake lady. I'm so disappointed she didn't come back. And she made 3-tiered cupcakes that were gluten-free, full of cream. They were beautiful. I think I've still got her card, but and it was great the night we have. And I think you can't have 3 consecutive nights. I think the poor shopkeepers would be exhausted as well. So, but you know, Easter, you've got 2 Easters. Which one do we pick? The Christian Easter or the Orthodox Easter? How do you pick that? They're both. So you've got to pick which one. I think. Well, Easter's Easter.
Right.
I mean, anyway. I mean, I did a great thing at Easter. I made little rabbits and gave them all away to
They were beautiful too.
the shelter. So they all hopped along. So there's other ways. So Easter and the laneway, that was really, it was good. But it was, and the Mayor has reminded me about East Lakes. That was fantastic. We haven't had it since then because of COVID. Just remind me, did we have camels?
No.
It was horse. You sure it wasn't camel riding?
No.
No, it was horse. It must have been horses, but there was somewhere where I went where there was camels. So there's the whole thing is you're proposing something, but the events team are now just getting back into it. Hopefully, COVID's gone. The seniors high tea I think is going to be great this weekend and this weekend, the next weekend, the 28th and the 4th. So there's a lot of issues, but Ramadan definitely, you can only do it. You cannot have everything, for 4 days or whatever. The ones in King Street, the older councillors would know that the laneways, it was great, but we didn't get any more funding, so we couldn't hold it. We tried to get someone to run them for us. That didn't happen. But that was a really good event. And now we've got different events teams that possibly could change again. So, but anyway, if it's only just for investigates, but I don't think you should consider extending the Bayside Ramadan Festival. It's only a report coming back.
Yeah.
I look forward to the multicultural one.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Barlow. And just to reiterate too that, the events program did go to committee and there's opportunity there for discussion and then was endorsed by full council. But like we do each year, we evaluate our events and then look at, what's worked well. We also have to strategically, to Councillor Muscat's point, is we have 5 wards. That means we have to have an event, a significant event within the events budget and in each of the wards, because we have a responsibility to allow all our residents to attend and connect and with that social. So it's something that we can't do ad hoc. We need to look at it holistically as it does every year. A report will come to committee in September, roughly, for 2023, and that's the opportunity then to look at it and say, all right, based on, and we'll ask council events to evaluate to ensure that we can see the evaluation of those events, and then, see, because there's a lot of anecdotal, which some of it's positive, some of it's not. So let's get a good evaluation, look at what works and try some new things too. We've got some events that work really well and we want to keep, but then let's look at what other things we can do. So that report will then come, as I said, later in the year, and that's an opportunity. So between now and then, councillors might like to do a bit of their own research and, what works, some opportunities. But again, we can't do it off the floor of the council. It's got to be as a plan where we all sit and contribute to that. So therefore, right of reply, 1 minute.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. And I thank you for all your advice. I agree with you. This is something that has been well thought about. We have looked at a holistic approach to this. This is not just about Ward 5. What we're looking at here is all those 3 wards on the west side. Just to clarify, I want to thank all the councillors that spoke. I actually agree wholeheartedly with a lot of the things that were mentioned, but I just want to clarify what we're asking for here, guys, or ladies and gentlemen, is for a report to be brought back to council to look at costings and to investigate. Now, this is the key one. Why investigate? And to answer Councillor Barlow with all due respect, for example, the Ramadan Festival, one night, Saturday, $30,000 to close the street. If we were to open it up Friday, Saturday and Sunday, that $30,000 becomes $50,000. Even though you're renting for one night, it's $30,000, it's actually cost effective to go Friday, Saturday, Sunday. However, this is only me talking. I would love to see the experts, as well as the community of Walt Street and Rockdale, be involved in this. And that's what I'm asking for. I'm not asking for me to make all these decisions. These are what people have told me, and I've said, you know what, I will represent this back to council. I'm doing my job wholeheartedly, hand on my heart, and that's what I'm trying to do. I'm asking for this to come back to committee, and more importantly, like the Mayor just mentioned, that this comes in front of the next calendar review. I know we've just had the calendar review. I'm not jumping the gun here and saying this has got to be in there. No, what I've put in the motion is, in September, when we look at the next calendar review, we look at it and think, okay, is there room through the City Performance Director, is there room for an additional night? If there's not, that's fine. I'm not going to lose any sleep. Is there room for a picnic-style Easter celebration in the park? Like Councillor Savranovsky said, do we need to look at funding and corporate sponsorship? I think what I'm asking here, ladies and gentlemen, is a holistic approach. One, to be brought back to committee, number one. Two, to be brought back to the calendar of events so that we could evaluate this. And if it doesn't work next year, 3 nights or in a park or whatever it may be for Ramadan, if Easter doesn't work and it doesn't work well, then we review it again, like we've just reviewed. The point is, ladies and gentlemen, we can't stay stagnated and saying, you know what, we've done this, we did it every Saturday and that didn't work. Okay, is there other ways? Is there a better way? Is this what the community wants? Are we consulting with the community? By all means, I'm not saying put $500,000 in a Brighton festival. I think once those findings come back through City Life Director, and we've already had this conversation, there is no way even the people of Brighton would say this is worth it. But we as a council need to look at this as an investment. If Ramadan is bringing us some success, the people are thanking Bayside, then yes, let's look at it. 1 night, 2 nights, whatever it may be. So I just want to say thank you again for all the councillors. This is something that the community has asked for. I would love this investigation so that we can, as a whole council and staff, evaluate what is the best going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cedric. We have a motion in front of us, moved by Councillor Cedric, second Councillor McDougall. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against? I declare the motion carried. This takes us to item 12.6, notice of motion, Bay Street Promenade. Councillor Douglas, do you wish to leave the chamber? Oh, okay. I thought you declared a... Okay. One person has registered to address the meeting.
Hi, this is Joyce
I
Campbell.
invite-
Unfortunately, I can't take your call at the moment, but please leave your name and number and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Bye.
So we'll just take 30 seconds just to see if the resident makes contact. Just while we do that, councillors, please take, and staff, please take an opportunity, and public, please take an opportunity to stand and stretch.
Hello. Hello.
We won't be a moment, Miss Campbell.
Thank you.
Miss Campbell, please go. We have Miss Campbell representing Bayside Business Community Inc. for the motion. Please go ahead, Miss Campbell.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Mayor and councillors, and thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak in favour of the motion for a Bay Street promenade. I speak on behalf of Bayside Business Community Inc. and members of the community who have signed a petition. When speaking with business owners, they tell me that this has been discussed for many years, but nothing has become of it. The Streets Alive Festival provides an indication of what is possible. Whilst businesses acknowledge that having a promenade wouldn't have the same impact with regards to the influx of business for them during the festival, it did provide the businesses with a good indication of what could be. Brighton Sands has all the qualities to make a destination for all to come and enjoy. We need to bring life back to the area. With the many restaurants, cafes and other businesses, we could have a family, safe, friendly culture. Patrons of businesses would be able to enjoy what businesses have to offer and be able to meet with friends and families and have an enjoyable experience and have uninterrupted conversations without the traffic noise and fumes which they currently experience. Some business owners report that when patrons arrive, they usually ask to be seated outside. However, within a matter of minutes for the customer asks to move inside due to the noise. Even when inside, the noise continues, with many people reporting that the noise has scared their young children and babies, resulting in customers needing to leave restaurants. During the Streets Alive Festival, Bayside Business Community members had the opportunity of speaking with many families, and one conversation that stood out was a couple of ladies from Ramsgate on Saturday afternoon who were visiting with their 17-year-old daughters. They mentioned that their daughters wanted to come to the festival by themselves, but sadly they wouldn't allow them due to the antisocial behaviour and the stigma of Brighton Sands. Thankfully, once they arrived, it didn't take them long to realise that the festival was a place safe for their daughters to enjoy by themselves, and they would be allowing their daughters to return the following evening. How good would it be to have a place for teenagers and young adults where they could meet with their friends, enjoy the area, feel and be safe all the time and not just on the odd weekend? How good would it be for our community to support our local businesses and feel safe in doing so? As at the moment, they don't feel safe. Plus, the current environment doesn't offer enjoyable experiences. Businesses tell us that it's very rare to see locals visiting businesses during the evening or weekends. Some business owners are fearful that if Brighton Sands continues the way it is, they will be forced to walk away from many years of hard work and investment. Who would take their place? Some tell us that it would be impossible to sell their business. They would need to walk away. Providing a positive vision for businesses would provide them with a more optimistic future for success. It's also very likely a promenade experience would attract a diverse range of new businesses entering the area. On behalf of Bayside business community and the community, we respectfully ask that the councillors to support the motion to reapproach the state government to support the motion for Brighton Sands Promenade, providing businesses in the local community with a positive vision for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Campbell. Okay, there is a motion before us. Is there a mover and a seconder? Moved Councillor Douglas, seconded Councillor Werner. Councillor Douglas?
Thank you. I'll try and keep this short and sweet, but here is the petition I'm tabling tonight for the Bayside Business Community Inc. put together and took signatures at the Streets Alive Festival. A Bay Street Promenade, it's not a new idea. It's been kicked around a bit. It's been supported by this council in the past, but you wrote to the state government and it got knocked back. But the M6 is a game changer for traffic on Bayside roads. The promise of this M6, it started to be constructed after the last time the promenade was knocked back by the state government. So the motion seeks for council to resubmit letters to the state government in the context of the M6 because the M6 promises to take 10,000 vehicles a day off the road as well as 2,000 trucks. So it really will change the traffic behaviour in Bayside, and it's a key moment for us to seize this this change in traffic behaviour. I've been told by a member of Rob Stokes' office, who's now the active transport minister, that once these changes happen, this is a great time to change the infrastructure in the area. So it's quite a simple motion. It just asks that we support the Bayside business community by writing letters to the state government, Premier, the current state ministers and shadow ministers, as well as our local state MP to seriously consider this proposal for a Bay Street Promenade to be ready for the opening of the first stage of the M6, and that we do that now, as it is an opportune time in the lead up to the state election to get commitments from both sides of politics.
Thank you, Councillor Douglas. Any further discussion? Councillor Barlow?
I'll just make a comment, and I don't want to be negative, but Transport New South Wales can tell you whatever they want, whatever you want to hear. I sat yesterday through the parliamentary hearing about tolling. I can tell you now, and I'm sure Councillor Savanoski could back it up, we sat there, we fought not to have the M6 built the way it was, not to come out at President Avenue. There is no way anyone is going to pay that $5. We have seen it at Bexley. Bexley is ruined because of the $7 toll, $7.13 I think it's the toll for the cars, and the trucks is $20, and it's 6.5 kilometres or something. Mr Morgan could explain the exact distance. So I know it sounds great, and yes, we can lobby them, but I am sorry, Transport New South Wales are telling you that, but guess what? No one's going to pay $5. They're not going to be paying it. We've seen it, and Bexley's the clear example of a great shopping centre that had no traffic. As soon as that $7 went on, it's killed the shopping centre and ruined the lives of everyone that lives on Forest Road and Stony Creek Road. So it's a great idea, but I wouldn't even start to think about changing Bay Street, because I'll be very surprised if it's what they say it's going to be.
Thank you, Councillor Barlow. Any other speakers? Councillor Werner?
Thank you. I would like to speak in support of this motion, and I think the issue here is not that, you know, what the effect of the M6 is going to be. It's more that it's quite, and the government has done this a few times, where when there are big transport, road projects, that there is also money invested in the local area. And I know we've had some parks, and we've had the skate park and so on, but often there is also investment for traffic calming, and this is one thing that can be done for traffic calming, is to to close the street there. So I think this really does make sense. I think it has been done in other areas before. I believe in around Lane Cove with the Lane Cove tunnel. I think this is something that the state government does do and has done in the past, and it is something that we can definitely ask for and campaign for. So I think it is a really good motion. It's very practical, and it has been done before. So we may even be successful in it. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Werner. Just Councillor Saranowski.
Madam Mayor, firstly, can I say I have no problems with the spirit of the notice of motion, but reality is, whilst the current government's in office, nothing will happen. Now, Councillor Barlow is 100% right what she said. Now, this notice of motion is in conflict to your mayoral minute, because what we're going to do is we're going to write to the government and say, look, can you give us the odd approval on the odd occasion to close off the street, where this one we're saying we're going full blast to say we want it permanently closed. What I'd like to see is that where this notice of motion be deferred, and quite happy if Councillor Douglas comes with you, that you have an urgent meeting with the local member Steve Camper to actually work out a strategy, because we can't even get the Minister for Transport and the police to come. I've spoken to the assistant, well at the time she was the Assistant Transport Minister on site. Now she ignored former Mayor Wada's letters, but I actually met her on site and she said no. So we don't have, I in spirit support that concept, but I think we need to get advice from our local member to say, okay, this is what our long-term, which he supports that concept, but what do you think? Because Mr. Camper is dealing with the government every day while he's in Parliament or whatever, and he's earned the respect of the current government. So, as I said, I support it, and I will probably, we should defer it and speak to him, because, as I said, for not repeating the same thing, your mayoral minute says, let's congratulate the Minister, for the grant, and then the next letter he gets from us is we're going to say to him, well, we want the street closed, we're going to do a campaign. And knowing how the bureaucracy works and the state government works, because the Transport New South Wales will get our letter, and there's a thing called a shredding machine, and what they'll do is they'll go, shh. That's what they'll do. Because Councillor Douglas knows, well, the bureaucrats in the Department of Transport reckon that the intersection of Grand Parade and Bay Street is a low priority to get speed cameras, noise cameras. They actually said it in their email. That's what they think of us, and they're saying to us, you've got low fatalities in that area. We can't even get speed cameras, red light cameras. And I even suggested to Mr. Camper that there's a camera at where I live, Bestick Street and West Botany Street. I don't know what the success rate is, whether they should relocate that camera to Bay Street and Grand Parade, or the one on Bestick Street. Again, I'm not sure what the success rate is there. And in Bay Street, they've got little signs, speed camera, 40 km/h zone, but there's no cameras, no speed cameras. As I said, I from the bottom of my heart, hand on heart, I understand the concept, I support the concept, but before we go off, let's go and speak to Mr. Camper, have a delegation of this council, and sit down with him and say, Steve, what do you think, what the approach should be in terms of a closure? Because I think that's the way to go. Now, whether it happens next month or the month after, then come back to council and say, okay, we've spoken to Mr. Camper, and this is the advice that he's got. Because at the moment, Mr. Camper, those that are interested, while I'm on my feet, he's fighting a campaign to compensate the taxi drivers because of the effect of Uber. And he's hit massive brick wall with the department because people paid $300,000 or $400,000 for the taxi plates are worth nothing. And the government doesn't want to even give them a cent. Well, they did a compromise of $20,000. And Steve's fighting this battle, and he's actually starting to lose hair of the bureaucracy and dealing with the state government. Andrew Constance, who was the former minister, now then used to come to Brighton, but he wouldn't tell us that he was here. And all we wanted him to do was come to Brighton, talk to us and see firsthand exactly what's happened to the area. Councillor Butler is right. They're not going to use the new freeway in 3 or 4 years' time because we are the most overtold place in the world. They're killing it. Bexley Shopping Centre is dead. There's so many shops that are empty. I go there to prop up the shops to buy a cup of coffee, and I know a cup of coffee is $3.50 or $4. And that makes a little small difference, but it's dead because of the trucks. People can't sleep at night. They're moving at the back of their house. They can't sleep at the front of the house. They're going at the back of the house. Do you think Transport New South Wales care about them? No, they don't care because we are seen as a safe Labor seat. Why should we do anything about it? And that's why I strongly recommend that, we defer it, speak to Steve, and even if we have to speak to Mr Minns or invite the opposition spokesman to transport roads, because at the end of the day, this time next year, we will have a Labor Party in office under the leadership, and then under the leadership of my mate Chris Minns.
Thank you, Councillor Saranowski. Just on that, an amendment's been set. Are you happy to accept that amendment? That the non be deferred and just a meeting?
No. The reason why I don't think we should defer it is because we have a petition here from the community asking Bayside Council to endorse this idea. It's a formality. It gives the community permission to continue to campaign on it, saying that they have the support from Bayside Council. I just get tired by the no's, quite frankly, by some of the members of council. The reasons why we can't do things, I'm sorry, but I might be a little bit naive and newly elected, but I have hope and vision and energy for the community, and that's what I intend to do, is to continue to work hard to find the yeses for our community, not always think about the no's and why we shouldn't be doing things. So, no, I don't like the amendment. I don't particularly think we should be taking it back to Steve Camper. I think this should be a non-partisan issue. We have a Liberal government in power. We have a Labor government in opposition. We need to be lobbying both of them at this strategic time in the lead up to the state election. We cannot rely on the fact that we hope that our mates are going to get elected at the next election and fix everything for us. No, we actually have to do our job and lobby both sides of politics. And excuse me, we've also been waiting for Steve Camper to kick off the Booning Task Force since February 9th, and nothing has happened. So I just get a little bit impatient, and I don't think that taking it back to Steve and creating some more red tape is going to really please our community. I think we should listen to our community, get this done, send some letters, give them permission to start campaigning, and show them that we're on the front foot.
Thank you, Councillor Douglas. An amendment's been put, and the amendment has been seconded. Is there any speakers? Do you want to vote on the amendment?
No, I'll speak
Okay.
on either. Sorry?
Just to clarify that we're speaking to the amendment.
Yes.
Yep, okay. I admire Councillor Douglas' aspiration and intending that not to accept no and go for yes. I just want to assure Councillor Douglas, since 2004, councillors that were since 2004, some of them are still present here, that we've always lobbied for the residents of Fifth Ward to try and close that part of Bay Street. I know we should never stop trying, and I agree with her sentiments, and with all great respect to Mr. Camper, who's a friend of mine. He has been part of the journey as well, in some part of the journey, to try and close that Bay Street section. Reality is, now I don't want to politicise this, it doesn't matter whether it's Labor or Liberal in government, we need to overcome one problem. And I'm not a traffic expert, but I can assure you it doesn't matter whether Labor or Liberal, they will be consulting with their traffic experts whether they can close Bay Street. Yes, we've been successful in the past to hold events, but that's only temporary. They'd never give us a permanent closure. And I hope that they do in the future. Now, they've created this M6 to help vehicles to go through to the Sutherland Shire. Bay Street, if you're a local, you would know, and I'll take you back to Bestick Street, Bay Street, and President Avenue. When you come out of the east side of the airport, which has people coming from the city that way, people coming from Botany that way, people coming from Mascot, they got to connect. So they take Bestick Street to connect to Walleye Creek from that side, to Arncliffe, Torella, and all the southern suburbs. You go into Bay Street, and that's an artillery road. They got to go to Bay Street, over the Seven Ways, onto Bexley Road to go west towards Campsie and that, because people work and people need to get home and so on. Then people go into President Avenue, okay, they used to go up to the highway and go towards Sutherland Shire and so on. People that kept on going onto Sandringham Street, going onto Rocky Point Road, and that's going to the Shire. And believe me, in peak hour traffic, you can't move. The traffic is so slow, and I've been stuck in it, and you sweat in some. But anyway, it is so bad that the government, right or wrong, they wanted to create a quicker flow and that. But no councillor, with respect, Fifth Ward councillors can stand up and tell us how they can mitigate by closing Bay Street will only increase the problems onto President Avenue or Rocky Point Road or Bestick Street. It's going to affect other residents. So these cars or trucks that go down Bay Street to go onto Bexley Road and go west, how are they going to get there? That's the problem, I think. It doesn't matter which government. I think every time we've lobbied, and I remember through Councillor Saranovsky, maybe 3 or 4 times we've approached the state government, through Councillor Wada, approached the state government, Councillor Mosselmain, Councillor Flowers, and I'd go back. We always wanted to close that. No, I'm all for it, and I am with in the spirit what Councillor Saranovsky and Councillor Douglas. But again, maybe we can try one more time, whether through Mr. Camper or whether through council ourselves. But I can tell you, I'm just a realistic person. I hate no's. I like to go for the yeses, but we're not going to get it. We've tried. And I don't want the community listening that we have ignored them or we did not represent them. We always have. And we can try again. There's no problem. But let's be realistic. And again, I don't want notices. I mean, that's a democracy where a councillor can bring in a notice of motion. But I don't want it to just keep happening. The staff, I keep doing reports and that. I'm surprised if they are really actually doing their work anymore, or they're overwhelmed with reports and feasibility studies and that. I don't know. Maybe the GM can, you know, I know she's honest, but come up, stand up and tell us, yes, it is putting pressure on the staff. Let's be realistic. We can try again. But the answer, I'll bet you, whether Labor or Liberal, and I'll bet my money when the Labor Party, when they're in office, if they will close Bay Street. On the basis, I was, and I was a member of the Arncliffe branch. Okay, I can assure you. Yes, okay, I can assure you that this won't happen because of the issue of the connection from the Grand Parade onto the western side of the city, of the suburbs. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Naji. Councillor McDougall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Look, I support the creation of a promenade on Bay Street in the location that Councillor Douglas identified, and I'd have no problem with Council endorsing the campaign. But with all due respect to everyone here, we voted earlier that we will be sending letters on this matter to ask for weekend closures of Bay Street to these same ministers. And I think, in all honesty, I think it's very impractical for us to send 2 letters asking for 2 different things to the same people arising out of this meeting. So, you know, I could perhaps say, Councillor Douglas, you mentioned that you think we should endorse this campaign so that the community can say the council is behind it. I'm all for that. I think that's fine. But I don't think we can send 2 conflicting messages to the government. You know, we have this point where we can come out and ask for something after the Streets Alive Festival, which was state government funded, say, look, this can work on weekends. You've said no to us in the past. You've said no in the exact issue that this motion asks us to write to them about. We know that. But let's try and pare that back, I think, as we did in the mayoral minute, which was unanimously supported by all councillors here, and try to come up with that ask and see how they respond. And depending on that, I think this could progress. And if they're, you know, saying no completely, and they have been, you know, they have gotten back to us within a reasonable time frame when we have put these things in, then absolutely we should go out and campaign on this and make this a state election issue, because that's when we'll be able to get both the government and the opposition to listen to us. I completely agree with that. But I don't think we can come out of this meeting tonight and send 2 letters with 2 different asks to the same people, you know, just quite honestly.
Councillor Cedric.
Oh, you're doing a great job. Come on, actually, Councillor Naji, I actually support what you're saying, what you've said, which is always sometimes surprising, but thank you for your comments. I actually wholeheartedly agree. Can I just firstly say I fully support this notice of motion. As Councillor Savranovsky always says, this is one of my 7 action plans. He wanted to add number 8, which is world peace, and I never made it in. But closing Bay Street has been a dream, like has been said, for 20 plus years, 30 years, as long as we know. There are key points here, and I know it's not just about saying no to this. It's really important that we look at what's going on and how we could make this happen. So it's not about necessarily no, it's about how. Everyone in here supports this promenade, this open mall, whatever it may be. I think it's how are we going to get it done? How are we going to get it done? So can I just say a few points? Number 1, even though this is a great initiative, I think we need to look at some of the problems that we were rejected from, and I remember the 5th Ward councillors, I was sitting on the other side of the chamber. On the 16th of December 2020, we got rejected with this idea. And I think what we need to do, before we go and say, hey guys, we want to bring this back, let's do it again, why did we get rejected? What was the problems? And I'm sure one of the key issues is what Councillor Naji just mentioned. We can close off this location. Is there parking? No. Do we have enough room on President Avenue? No. Is there Bestick Street? No. The 1-lane Bestick Street. Okay. What about the other side street? What about Crawford? What about Queen? Every single street is chock-a-block. You could barely park. One of the big criticisms of Ramadan Festival is I couldn't find a park. I had to park, I kid you not, I had a group of kids that came with me from youth group, and we parked, believe it or not, Ador Avenue. We parked at that soccer field, and we walked all the way down. About 15-minute walk. Yeah, when you got 50 kids, or maybe you're a fast walker, Councillor Barlow.
All right.
Maybe. Sorry. Okay, so I think I'm with you, Councillor Douglas. We want this to happen. How are we going to overcome it is a key thing. I've got some suggestions here, but I think Councillor Savranovsky already mentioned this. I think if we could look at bringing this back to Council in an information session, find out what happened, and I know you want a quick fix, and I know you've got this petition, but we all know a lot of these petitions, like myself, a lot of these petitions, everyone signs it. Here's the thing, when I was asking people at Ramadan Festival, the Streets Alive, would you love to see it? Majority of people said, yeah, let's do it. Some of the residents said, don't you do it. Don't you dare do it. But I said, but this is one of my action plans, so I wholeheartedly believe in it. However, some of the residents are worried about Crawford, Queen, President, Bestick, Princess, Moat. So I think what we need to be looking at doing is bringing it back into an information session, asking a genuine community consultation, because you can't go to the state government. We don't want another, I'm going to use this phrase, please, the Gardiner Park situation to happen again. We don't want to all say, yeah, let's do it, and then all of a sudden these Gardiner Park armies are attacking us and we're going to court again because some resident in Queen Street or Princess Avenue is crying out saying, how dare you guys do this? Let alone, you know, there's so many issues we've got in Brighton, so I think we need to do it right. Let's get the community on board. Let's get the shopkeepers on board. I'm sure they'll come up with a positive outcome. However, we've got to do it right. And the third thing is, once we get this feedback from the community, from the residents, maybe we could investigate, I don't know, all of 2216. I don't know if that's possible, and consult them about this initiative. So I'm putting this as an option that...
Do you know who lives in that postcode?
Hey? You live there.
2216 is like Rockdale.
Okay, but it's also Brighton, isn't it?
Yeah, it's half of the city.
Okay. Are you all right, bro? Okay. 22117. Okay. Anyway, the point of this, Madam Mayor, he's a good guy. No, he's a good guy. Okay. Anyway, the point of the story is, if it's going to make, I think all Ward 5 in particular, councillors, we've all wanted this, and we all want this. It's just how we're going to get it done. Mr. Campbell, come to the party. I know for a fact he wants this as well, but he can't achieve it by himself. We've got to be all unified on this together. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, can I just ask a question? Wouldn't, I mean, it seems like a bit of a Ward 5-centric night tonight, but wouldn't you get kind of an indication from the state government that they were in support of the closure prior to doing all the work and going out there and consulting with the community and then taking it to the state government and they say no? Why wouldn't we want to get an indication that it was a possibility and then consult? I think it's a waste of staff time and resources to do that. We talked about chicken and egg scenario. Why should we be doing this before if it's going to be a no? That's my question.
Yeah, if I can just, I don't know what we're talking to. We're talking the foreshadowed or the... We're talking the foreshadowed. Okay. I'm speaking against the foreshadowed.
No, an amendment. We're speaking to an amendment.
We're talking to the amendment?
Yeah.
Right. I'll talk for the amendment, and in addition to what Councillor Jansen has just said, this could all be for nothing if the government just says nah, which is what they've been doing for years and years and years and years, right? We need our local state member, Steve Camper, to work with his government contacts, his government peers, to tell us if there's any appetite whatsoever. If they give us the slightest hint that we're open to discussion, if you have the community on board and the community's coming, then we'll investigate this, and then if they're opening the door, we do it. I can't see any point whatsoever in writing conflicting letters to same people as resolved in the same meeting. So that's the motion. The amendment says, which is endorsed by Councillor Sarabnosky, is effectively to engage Steve Camper, who's our local member, to see what the government's appetite for this is. If the government's appetite is exactly as it was in 2020, and I'm quite confident that it has not changed one iota, then all this is wasting time, wasting money. There's talk of traffic studies, there's talk of community consultation. It's all for nothing if there's no appetite for it at the state government. So I don't know who's spoken to what, because I think we're all understand it's right, but I think we should just move the amendment to put the amendment to a vote.
Councillor Cedrak said he's happy to withdraw his foreshadowed amendment, so we'll speak to the amendment now.
I move that the amendment then be put.
Okay, moved by Councillor Morrissey, seconded by Councillor Awada. Okay,
Or not?
it's the amendment. It's not
Right.
your motion, it's the amendment. The amendments gets debated first.
Can we call for a division?
We haven't gone yet, just wait a moment.
Madam Mayor, can I just make a suggestion? Can I take Councillor Sedgwick's first part? It's actually a valid point. I should have thought about it before. We also need to know why they knocked us back before, because, as I said before, if we just write a letter, Transport have got this automatic shredder on it. That's not a bad idea, because in his foreshadowed amendment was, we need to know what the grounds were, why they knocked us back. No.
But it's been amended.
No. Well, no, but in your in your motion that you're moving, does...
Okay, thank you.
Well,
So
in my amendment, if we can add to it that we hold an information session and our staff, not next week, just explain to us why the department knocked us back.
Well, do you think, councillor, it would be to seek advice on why, and that can then be circulated to councillors? Yeah. One moment, hang on, Councillor Douglas. There is an amendment that is before us. This amendment has been put, so we now need to deal with this amendment first, and then we will come back to the motion.
Can I just say one thing? That the state government election is next March. I have quite a bit of experience with elections. If we are going to run a campaign, we have to get a wriggle on now. You don't wait till February to run a campaign for an election in March. You guys all know that.
Thank
so
you.
Just take that into consideration.
Thank you, Councillor Douglas. All right, so we have an amendment before us, and the amendment is on the screen, moved by Councillor Saranowski, seconded by Councillor Morrissey. This motion be deferred and a meeting be held with Steve Camper to develop a strategy. And please, councillors, remember we have moved a Merrill minute tonight, which says we are writing to the appropriate ministers, and that is the first step would be even more weekend closures. That is the first step. If they're not going to even consider weekend closures, there's no way they're going to consider anything further. And, to the point about staff resources, our staff have got so many projects on already. So therefore, I put the amendment. All those in favour say aye. Against, I declare the amendment carried. Now you may ask for a division. Thank you, Councillor Werner. A division has been called. I'll wait for the officers to have the screen. Okay, Councillor Morrissey. We're voting on the amendment for Muscat, Councillor Muscat, Councillor Fidel, Councillor Jansen, Councillor Naji, Councillor Sam. Oh, sorry. Sorry. So, Councillor Naji, Councillor Saranowski's for, Councillor Werner, Councillor Wada, Councillor Barlow, Councillor Hannah, Councillor Douglas, Councillor McDougall, Councillor Sedrak. Okay, therefore, I declare that. I've now got to go back and vote. We will vote on the original motion. Oh, I've got to vote. Sorry, I'm for the amendment.
The amendment becomes the motion.
The amendment becomes the motion.
And you vote on that.
Yes, yes. Then the amendment becomes the motion. So now we vote on the motion. All those in favour say aye. Against? Declare it carried. All right, thank you, councillors. That takes us, it takes us now to the reports, and we have a report on here which is 10.2, and I note Councillor Saranowski and Councillor Morrissey, who work in the banking industry, will exit. There's a officer's recommendation before us. Do I have a mover and seconder? Move Councillor Awada.
With a minor change.
I'll just get a seconder. If second Councillor Jansen, Yes, please go ahead, Councillor Wyder.
Sorry, just on the officer's recommendation number 3, that council approves, just add before A, it should say the council approves up to a new 10-year loan.
That's a good suggestion. Thank you, Councillor.
thank you.
Just in case we can have a less time frame. All right, is there any discussion?
And I agree with that, but just want to hear Mr. Momo's opinion on that since it's been changed on Momo. Or the GM, thank you.
Through the chair, just very briefly, and I realise I don't have the same financial skills as my learned colleague. However, in thinking about that suggestion, the interest rate is moving, as you know. Even today, we're advised that Treasury had been negotiating different rates. What we want to achieve is the flexibility and the best possible rate that we can for council. So it may be that going for a less a period term, it might be 5, it might be 7 years, whatever is best for council, and we can cash flow. The amendment that Councillor Wyder has put up will allow us to have that flexibility.
Is there any further discussion? All right, you have a recommendation before us. All those in favour say aye. Against, I declare it carried. Thank you, councillors. That now takes us to item 11, which is the minutes and reports of committees. So I believe that Councillor Muscat, Councillor Douglas and Councillor Barlow have declared. Is anyone leaving the chamber? Oh, you pulled something out. I beg your pardon. So, Councillor Muscat, are you leaving the chamber? No. Councillor Douglas, are you staying in the chamber? Yeah, we'll do those separately, that's fine. All right, so we had Councillor Barlow. What did you want to speak to in 010?
Yeah. Look, I only thought it should be pulled out because it's an amazing report. We've got to congratulate the staff. I thought, wow, I mean, it must have taken a lot of work, but it's good to have that there because the people that whinge and carry on about no one being able to play, now it's statewide. I mean, I can't even walk across my nature strip, it's that muddy, absolutely soaked, and I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but out the back, so that everyone's in the same boat. But to have that report there, you can wave it in their face if they carry on, because it's really a very good report, and I congratulate the staff.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Barlow, and we've actually been sending the link to people that raise concerns to the report, so that they are then to community.
They're appreciating it all.
So they're able to at least understand the methodology. Yes. Oh, really? Oh, okay. I think we've got the wrong number for Councillor Muscat, if you would like to return to the chamber. No? She's having okay. So, Councillor Douglas, which item did you want to pull out? Okay.
Look, I do applaud us having this, but speaking from experience in consulting with the residents in Ward 5, the aged residents, I really think we need to put some KPIs on these reports. Recently, I spoke to Fred from the Men's Shed, who is still waiting from a response from council about the redevelopment of the Muddy Creek site, as am I. In the meantime, he has had a heart attack and a triple bypass, and his words to me this week were, "I will be in the ground before I hear a response from council." I have to say this is pretty much an embarrassment to me as his community representative, but also to Bayside Council. I've also recently requested from council support for various community gardens.
I think I think that's an unfair statement. I do pass on my sympathies to the resident.
Yep.
But you've got to understand too that, there's a lot of things happening in council, and council do their best to respond to all queries, and there are a lot of queries that do come in, and sometimes it takes some investigation and it takes some time in order to get responses through. There are a lot of representations coming in from councillors, from the community, and that's why we've put a customer experience strategy into the operations plan, so that then we can look at an approach that improves, because we're always looking at improvement. But I don't think it's appropriate to come in here and, make statements like that, which are derogatory to staff.
About a motion that council had last year to consult with the Muddy Creek community groups about the development of the site there. A motion that we asked, the council said they would do that consultation after COVID. COVID has long gone. I have put a question on notice in asking what's happening. That was about 3 meetings ago. We've had no response. These are 3 groups of age communities. We've got 3 seniors groups there, and they are all stressed, waiting for a response, and have had no acknowledgement from council for 12 months almost. So why I'm saying that we might need some KPIs in this report is it's all very well and good to go and make a nice glossy report saying that we're going to consult with the community, the aged community, and we're going to provide these services to them, and we're going to include them in the decision-making process. But if we're actually not giving those responses to people when we've promised them through a notice of motion, and the councillor that represents them is trying to get information from the council, then that is a problem.
So did you raise this at committee when you moved the item?
I wasn't at this committee because I was sick.
No?
So I'm asking the council
So
to put
I've
KPIs on this report.
So I've just received advice from the director, Ms Dawson, that KPIs are contained in Community Strategic Plan and Delivery Program, and then again in the Ops Plan and Works Plan for staff. So the documents that's currently out for community consultation. So I encourage all councillors, because that is what we endorse council will do. So it's really important that councillors, before the next meeting when that comes to us, that you've had a really thorough read through it, because that's council's direction to implement both the councillors and the community's wants, if you like, or...
What's this report for then? Why are we got an additional report on how we're dealing with our aged community?
We do for all of them. So there's the strategies and the approaches, but then there's what sits in the operational plan, which are the deliverables. So, but look, as we said, those KPIs are in there, so it's something that, that exists, and council staff do work to that. All right, there's being no other items in 11.1, I move that the minutes, someone happy to move? Move Councillor Morrissey, seconded Councillor Cedric. All those in favour say aye. Against, declare it carried. We now move to 11.3. I'm going to ask Councillor Morrissey to come into the chair. I will be leaving the chamber. I believe other councillors who have also indicated, have declared an interest.
Moving the whole lot, right? Moving the minutes. So we're doing 11.2 first? Okay, councillors, we'll just move on to item 11.2. And Councillor Muscat, you've declared an interest in that item. 11.2. CP 22006.
We haven't done 11.2.
We've done 11.1.
But is it less than significant? So you'll... The mayor's out of the room.
Sorry?
The mayor shouldn't be out of the room for this one, but
Do you want to do 11.3 and then come back to 11.2? Sorry, Councillor Muscat, I'm going to recall you two here because we're just trying to... It was just confusing with people in and out of the room. I apologise. So we'll proceed with 11.3 and then we'll come back to 11.2 when the mayor's returned to the room. So we've got... So this is... You should be now... Oh, sorry, it's in front of me here. The minutes of the City Works and Assets Committee meeting from the 11th of May 2022. We have an officer recommendation. Can I have a mover? Councillor Jansen.
007.
Oh, sorry.
007.
Okay, so we can just deal with that item separately, yeah?
you can do it that way if you want to. Move the other two and pull that one out.
Okay, so we'll move items 22.008 and 22.009.
And 0,
Yeah?
0,
And 10, sorry, and 010.
Yeah.
That's moved by Councillor Naji, seconded by Councillor Awada. So this is 8, 9 and 10. All those in favour of 008, 009 and 0010, all those in favour say aye. Against, no. Declare those items carried. And then we can
Now
call.
on to 007.
Yep, so we'll call them, or we'll just do...
No, I think
Just continue? Continue with 00.
007.
Sorry, just...
Move it.
Okay, need a mover for 007. Moved by Councillor Jansen, seconded by...
And I'll second it, or move it.
Yeah, Councillor Barlow, seconder, 007.
Yeah, no, I've
Councillor Barlow.
just pulled that one out again because I feel that everyone, the residents, should really understand that we've got 45 affordable housing units provided by the developer. We as council do not provide as out of our pocket affordable housing. There's a lot of misinformation that keeps going around. So I'm just saying that there's 45 strata lots that we are being handed over to with no cost to us. I mean, there'll be a future cost.
Yep.
And that was developed with the planning proposal, I believe. So I just thought I'd like to, and I think all the residents should really understand that we've got them, but it's been provided by the developer. We need to negotiate items like that again. But we as a council do not provide affordable housing as the built form.
Yes.
Out of our pocket.
Thank you. Good point, Councillor Barr. And just to add to that, this is, for those of you who are familiar with it, it's the Barter 2 site, and it's a good outcome for the community from the developer, given the severe overdevelopment that council is opposed to. We still as a council try and work towards good outcomes in difficult situations, and this is one of those. Is there any other speakers? Okay, I'll put 22.007. All those in favour say aye. Against, no. Declare it carried. So that's all 11.3. Okay, that closes 11.3, and I'll recall the other councillors and the mayor to the room. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Muscat. All right, councillors. With all my scribble, I missed 11.2. So is someone happy to move the minutes of the corporate move? Councillor Morrissey, seconded Councillor Jansen. All those in favour say aye. Against, declare it carried. This now takes us to 12.3, Notice of Motion, Lena Street, Sandringham Parking Permit Petition, moved by Councillor McDougall, seconded by Councillor Saranowski. Would you like to speak to it?
Oh, look, I'm very excited that we're approaching the end of the meeting and it's only 10 o'clock. So I'll speak it. I think it's fairly self-explanatory. This is really just asking the staff to consider a petition put together by the residents. And then that'll ultimately come back to council. It's not asking for anything to happen at the moment, just for this to be considered. So if anyone has any issues, I'll speak in reply. But
Thank you, Councillor McDougall. Any other speakers? All those in favour?
Can I just ask that actually Councillor McDougall explains the motion, because I found it quite confusing to read it.
Can we put the motion on the screen, please?
So
Let's get it up there firstly.
12.3. Hopefully finish by 10:30.
So effectively, residents on Lena Street have come to council with a request. They've been knocked back administratively. I just think it should be formally considered. This is about they have a couple of issues: it's parking permits and the no stopping signs on the street. I just think that this deserves, they've taken the time to put this proposal together. I think it needs to be considered by the traffic committee and a report come back to council. That's all I'm asking for.
All those in favour say aye. Against, declare it carried.
Madam Mayor, can I just ask,
All right.
Madam Mayor, can I just ask a recommitment of BTC 22065? I should have, I'll only be 30 seconds.
Sorry, which one? Which?
BTC 22.065, general business in the traffic committee.
065, which is general business.
Yeah. With your indulgence, Madam Mayor, I just wanted to acknowledge the final meeting for Jeremy Morgan. I just want to say well done. I'm saddened to see him go further, but you can't stop him. It's a new position he's taken over. It's a promotion, so I just want to thank you for agreeing to recommit it. So, Jeremy, thank you. Sorry to see you go. Congratulations.
Yeah. That was an appropriate timing. I was going to do it at the end, but no, I think that's appropriate at the end of the traffic agenda. So thank you for your contributions, Jeremy, over many years and your expertise, and we wish you every success in your new role. Thank you.
Can I just quickly add, please? Just quickly. 30 seconds. I just want to say openly as well, Jeremy.
You can ring him tomorrow.
Oh, okay. I'll text you. Thank you. You're a legend. Oh, look. Oh, what about this guy? I will say it together. Okay, Jeremy, you're a champion. Thank you so much. Are you going to let it,
I'll be really.
Oh, this is a roar.
You both get 30 seconds.
Okay. Okay, I just want to say, look, thank you for everything you've done. You've been so professional. I wish you all the best for your future endeavours. Like many wonderful staff here, you're one of the highlights, and I just want to say thank you once again.
I'll actually be very quick. Thank you, Jeremy. We had the opportunity to work together. I was chair of the traffic committee for a couple of years. We certainly didn't always agree, but I really do respect you. You're a very dedicated public servant. You're always honest. You're always dedicated to your job. And I wish you all the best in the future, and congratulations on your new role.
Anyone else? All right. This takes us to the notice of motion 12.5. Oh, sorry, beg your pardon. Notice of motion 12.4, footpaths in Bexley North. Do I have a mover? Councillor Hannah, seconded Councillor Barlow. Would you like to speak to it?
Love to. Shame I couldn't get a resident and come and speak, but they couldn't get out of their house to get across the nature strip. Sort of have to
Councillor Hannah,
just
that's
have to throw that one in. Look, Madam Mayor, I want to talk about the 3 Rs, and I know you have an educational background, and I'm not talking about reading, writing and arithmetic, which should actually be W and A, which is possibly why we've got a literacy and numeracy problem in schools. But I want to talk about the 3 Rs that relate to local government: roads, rates and rubbish.
Our core
Now,
business.
When it comes to the footpaths in Bexley North, we need to add 3 other letters: WTF. And you all know what that stands for. Where's the footpaths?
Councillor Hannah.
Where's the footpaths? Now, Madam Mayor, look,
How long did it take you to prepare your material tonight?
Madam Mayor, I did ask a question with notice back on the 9th of February. Now, I don't believe that I have had a response to that, but having said that, I was extremely pleased that when I went for a walk down Canonbury Grove, Bexley North, I was actually very, very shocked to see that from Ellerslie Road all the way down to Bexley Road, all the way around the little park and all the way back to Ellerslie Road, which was part of my question with notice, had actually been paved.
It was
with
a
footpath.
surprise for you, Councillor
It
Hannah.
was a wonderful surprise. Now, the only criticism I have against it is that I'm not into saw cutting. I do prefer construction joints, but even the best Italian concreters are actually now going for saw cuts, and I know that I'm a bit set in my ways when it comes to concreting. There was a section there that I picked up where the saw cuts had not been done. That's been rectified. And I also had the opportunity to talk to some residents that were walking along the footpath wheeling prams.
Wonderful.
And I said, what do you think? They said, this is fantastic. It's fabulous. Now, unfortunately, we have got other streets in Bexley North where houses have been in existence since 1939 that do not have a footpath on either side of the street. Not on either side of the street. And some of these residents are now getting quite elderly. Now, I've spoken to one resident who was nearly run over by a car, this is in Handley Avenue, because he's got no alternative but to walk on the road. Now, with all this wet weather, this is not right. Now, we're going back now over 4 legal entities. I'm talking about going right back to actually Bexley Municipal Council. Bexley Municipal Council, these residents, some of them have been paying rates right back to Bexley Municipal Council, which was formed in 1900. It split off from Hurstville Council, went from 1900 to 1948. It then rolled into Rockdale Municipal Council. It then rolled into Rockdale City Council, and we're now in Bayside Council.
So
that's 4 councils, 24 mayors, Madam Mayor.
Oh, wow.
24 mayors. So
So
what
can
I'm
I
saying
just
to you
clar-
is,
can I just clarify?
Yes.
So the street that you said has now been completed, was that, so that was part of your original question? Now,
Correct.
the other streets on this motion, are they the same streets that were in that original?
they are the same streets except for that additional one, Orpington Street, but I haven't covered all the streets. There are additional streets. I haven't gone over to the other side of Bexley Road. Now, and I also want to make this point. Maynard Avenue, I'm assuming, was actually named after the last mayor of Bexley Municipal Council, Mr. Albert Maynard, who was mayor from December 44 to the 31st of December 1948.
Oh.
So what we're talking about here, given that we're going back to 1939, We're actually talking about the average male life expectancy of a male baby that is born today. 82.9 years. Now, if we repeat this history, what this means is any baby, male baby that is born in Bexley North today is quite likely to never see a footpath. To never see a footpath, Madam Mayor. Now, for heaven's sakes, really, we really have to do a lot better than this. So that's why I've put this up. I realise this all comes down to funding and everything else, but this area has been forgotten. And it's simply not fair to say to residents that have been in their houses since 1939, sorry guys, you're not getting a footpath. It's not fair. So I'm hoping that this chamber supports this. This is not something that I've dreamed up. This is something that people have come to me. I'm very, very grateful, and I'm telling you now that people are grateful they got their footpath on either side of Canterbury Grove because they're really using it. And with all this wet weather, and of course this butts in to the age-friendly community strategy.
Accessibility.
That's what this is about. That's what this is about, and that's what this council needs to. We've got to get back to the basics. Roads, rates, rubbish, WTF. Where's the footpaths? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. That was a great campaign. All right. Any further discussion?
Just a comment that I agree wholeheartedly with that area. It is extremely hard to walk on grass. I think before the election I found out I'm allergic to paspalum because people don't know their laws.
And there was lots of it, yeah.
Yeah, so I've got one street, but it's already been, it was done before Carisbrook, I think it is, but it's near the Bexley School, Bexley North Primary School, and it is dangerous, so I'm hoping it's already on the list, because it was done, I notified them last year, because someone had tripped over the tree roots, so yes, there is, I'm surprised, because I was used to my old ward, the original part of my ward, which has a footpath in every single street, on every side. That could have been the late Ron Rathbone saying, I want footpaths, and the Dailies on the Ward 1 one, they said, no, in the Parks Department, I want grass. So it's extremely hard to walk on grass, as anyone would know.
Thank you, Councillor Douglas. All right, well, all those will put the motion.
Can I just add something to that, please? Quickly, please. Quickly. Can I also reiterate, I think it's a great motion, and I love that the idea that it's got subject to funding and costing is really important, as Councillor Barlow usually mentions, so it's good to see that there. I'm not sure, though, how Council feels about it or the mover, and just so we've spoken about this holistic approach. I know we're looking at this for Bexley North, and I'm not taking anything away from the mover or the seconder. Is this something that we could look at, whether it be in this motion or future motions? Is there other areas across the whole LGA that we have this similar situation? As we've mentioned before, the holistic approach, looking at ward by ward, looking at different sides. So I'm for it. I'm not voting against it. I'm not sure if we can add that in there, potentially as a point 3, that council can look at future. So we still go ahead with this. Just adding a third point, that council could look at future areas of need of something of that nature. Again, I'm flexible one way or another.
Do you accept that amendment?
If not, so.
I'm happy to have that amendment. What I'd suggest is perhaps something along the lines of, in addition to the above, that council conduct an audit of all streets within its entire LGA, subject to, yeah. I mean,
I think what's important, there is a works program, and I might just ask the director to speak to the fact that there is some logic in the way these decisions are made.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you, we do have a program for footpaths. There's an order that we use to prioritise them. So we look at town centres first, and then around schools, and then I guess, desire lines that lead to public transport and those kinds of things. So some of these more suburban locations are lower on the priority list, and that's probably why they haven't been done in time, because they carry smaller amounts of foot traffic. We could report to you on how we prioritise and also what our forward program is, and see if that meets the needs of the residents that you're advocating for. So that's something we could do. We already have that information available.
Just a quick question through you, Madam Chair. Mr. Barber, do you think this third addition would cause... We don't want this... I get the intention, and I don't want this to be a massive job for everybody. Is this going to be a burden for your department, or is this something that we could achieve quite substantially?
Through you, Mayor, that would require a fair bit of work to look at every street in the LGA. It would be more practical for us to give you the program that we have, and to see if that meets the needs that you're endeavouring to satisfy. And if there's streets that we've missed, then we can consider those.
Yeah. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, look, what I want to do, I don't want to delay getting these streets prioritised. I think I've made the case in the chamber. I haven't made this up. Look, this.
Well,
So I think probably I won't accept the thing. We can have a fresh notice of motion in regards to that. These people, there's some people there that are well into their 90s. Now there's one gentleman that's actually lived in the street since he was 5, and he's been waiting since 1935 for a footpath. I've made the case. This is actually quite embarrassing for me. So I think we need to really try and help these people out. They're elderly people, we need to give them a footpath.
So that was your right of reply? Yes?
Just a quick question through you, Chair. Just would like to know whether we've got an active transport plan.
So we might take that question on notice as a thank you.
So I know that Councillor Hannah has his right of reply, but I would suggest I'm aware of a street with a similar issue at Sanssouci, Merriall Street, Sanssouci, where both sides of the road are grass. And I'm aware of a resident there who does have issues with this because they're in a wheelchair. So with
Are you happy
Councillor
to
Hannah's
accept an
indulgence,
additional street?
So add Merriall Street, Sanssouci,
Can you spell it for the purposes?
Merriel Street, Sanssouci, which just has the same issue.
All right, thank you.
I don't know whether I'm allowed to advocate for my own street, but I have also not got... The reason why is, though, that there is a person with a wheelchair.
Yeah, well, that then put that through as, that should come through as a representation.
I have done that, yeah.
Thank you. All right, then that puts, we have a motion in front of us. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against, declare it carried. All right, that takes us to item 12.5, mascot station ventilation shaft. Mover, Councillor Jansen, seconded Councillor Naji. Would you like to speak to the motion?
Yep, just wanted to say that I recognise that councils do roads, raids and rubbish, but modern progressive councils like Bayside, who've just adopted their public art policy, also do the 3 Cs, community, culture plus customer experience. So this area was identified as some quite ugly infrastructure. So the proposal is just to contact Airport Link, who are the owners of the infrastructure, negotiate with them and offer to take on the process of going through, of overseeing a public art commission in the form of a mural for the site. I think it would beautify the area in what is a quite significant gateway location close to the airport. So if you have any other questions, please ask.
Thank you, Councillor Jansen. Any further discussion? All those in favour say aye. Against, declare it carried. This takes us to our final notice of motion. This is 12.7, the electric vehicle discussion paper. Mover, Councillor Douglas, second. Councillor Werner, would you like to speak to the motion? Councillor Douglas.
I did provide quite extensive background notes, but I don't think they've all been necessarily read. So that's
not a fair assumption.
So that council note the current actions in equipping the council fleet with electric vehicles, which will be built on as demonstrations to the community as funding become available, but that council now writes a discussion paper as the next step regarding options for delivering electric vehicle infrastructure, planning and implementation in our local government area. Now, this really came about because there have been some significant grants available from state government to local government to help with the subsidisation of electric vehicle infrastructure, which Bayside Council hasn't applied for because we haven't had direction from councillors in order to do so. So this is the first step along the path that, in consultation with the Director of City Futures, for us to start future-proofing Bayside for electric vehicles. We currently do not have any fast charging stations or public EV stations in Bayside. A discussion paper is that first step so that we don't miss out on opportunities regarding electric vehicles in future, especially grants from the state government. The discussion paper, there's a bunch of things that I'm suggesting within here, how EV infrastructure can be used to create increased prosperity through tourism opportunities, drawing customers to local business centres, meeting residential needs that help address the cost of living issues with rising petrol prices. Now, an electric vehicle will save most people about $5,000 a year, and with petrol prices already just topping $2.20, even though we have a fuel excise at the moment, this is only going to become a bigger and bigger issue for people's cost of living. Consideration of planning opportunities also for EV stations in private development needs to be considered, such as renewal of the Coles in Ramsgate and other large-scale residential developments. And the council needs to find a position on on-street public charging stations. And consider options for fast charging stations in future developments and renewals, such as the Botany Aquatic Centre, Barton Park, and the Muddy Creek Precinct, where people will stop to use the facilities and can charge while they're there. Also, where current council premises might be able to include a fast charging EV station, such as Rockdale Library Car Park. Also, consideration if council can create an alliance with other councils for the implementation of EV infrastructure, like that which is done in Randwick, Waverley and Woollahra councils, who are jointly funding EV infrastructure, and opportunities for tying EV infrastructure to solar energy, like the City of Newcastle has done. All of this will help Bayside Council get to our net zero emissions target. So, I won't read the whole lot out, but in summary, I thought this was very pithy from the Randwick Council, that EV charging stations bring more tourism dollars to local beaches and shopping precincts. They help residents with cost of living pressures and inflated petrol prices. They reduce pollution and noise on our roads. And there is a lot of thinking that most EV charging will happen at home and in the workplace, but destination charging helps those who don't have access to this, and also providing confidence to drive an EV, overcoming range anxiety. So in the background, there's also quite a lot of information there about what the state government is doing. This is a big priority for the state government. They want to have EV charging stations every 5 kilometres along Sydney's major commuter corridors and whatnot, within 5 kilometres of residential areas with limited off-street parking, so that there's addressing equity issues for people who don't have off-street parking, and in or near commuter car parks. So there's also a list of what all these other councils are already doing. It's Northern Beaches are doing it, Randwick, Waverley and Woollahra, the Inner West, City of Sydney, City of Newcastle, Hornsby Shire. So what I'm asking for is that we ask staff to provide a discussion paper to bring back to councillors to look at what the options are so that we can start planning for the future and not miss out on these funding opportunities.
Can I say on the onset, I will not be supporting this motion, and I think we're mentioning Woollahra, Waverley. I mean, people, multi-millionaires could afford electrical cars. In Bayside, we don't have that many electrical cars. The bottom line is it's another council resources to write discussion paper. I think we should leave it to the state government to take care of that. We don't have the resources, we don't have the expertise to do a discussion paper on delivering electrical vehicle infrastructure. So on the onset, I'm not going to be supporting this motion. Thank
Look, I've had another take on this, and I'd like to propose an amendment, and I'll explain the reasons why. So I'm in support of the first step of that motion, but not the second one. And I just want to start by emphasising that I am 100% in support of electric vehicles, and I believe it's a live issue. My family do own one, so I'm familiar with it, but I won't really be supporting the second part of the motion because I believe the material is already out there. These discussion papers and steps and options for local government are already out there and researched. And I do thank you, Councillor Douglas, for putting together the background info, because I did do my own research, and whilst there aren't any fast charging stations in the area, which are the DC chargers, if you go to the State Transport for New South Wales online charging station map, they do list at least 10 public charging locations in the area. So they're all level 1 or level 2 type 2 charging stations. And some of the listed locations do have multiple charge points at them as well, and they tend to be clustered around areas of kind of high demand, which are in close proximity to the airport. And the published data was also saying that the DC fast chargers tend to be located on high-use regional roads, so therefore they're not really appearing in metro areas at the moment, but the state government does have plans to install these over the coming years and has targets on their interactive maps. So that's kind of consistent with the current information that most people who own electric vehicles, it's out there, the data says that 96% of current EV owners charge their cars at home 90% of the time. And I did note that some of the charge locations are in new car parks. So through you, Madam Chair, I just want to ask the General Manager if Council is already negotiating with developers on the provision of charge points, because I noticed there are 5 sites at the one location in the new Grand Shopping Centre at East Lakes.
Through the Chair, so we are achieving a number of charging points. In part, the developer, such as East Lake Shopping Centre, that's been something that they have voluntarily decided and agreed to place within their development. They see that as an attraction and a good statement of their responsibility back to the community. We have had some very early discussions with Jolt and Ausgrid, but at that point there were a lot of unanswered questions that really left us wondering about whether it was suitable for the locations being discussed. I should really bring to Council's attention that Council is purchasing 6 electric vehicles at the moment. They will be appropriately branded. They'll be used by staff when they're out in the field, so it will be very clear as a demonstration that this council is taking the rollout of electric vehicles very seriously. We've also received a small grant that will allow us to install a 6-point charger in Bexley Depot. So the 6 vehicles and the charger, it's an investment of something in the order of $300,000 that Council is making. The grant that we've received is about 10% of the total value of the project. So we are looking for grant possibilities, and we're very pleased that procurement was able to achieve the grant that was going at the time.
Thank you. I hadn't finished with my thing, but thank you for that. So also Councillor Douglas mentioned in her background research the amazing work that other councils are doing, but I'm not sure if you're aware that the Randwick Willara Waverley partnership comes through charging residents an extra rate levy. So those households, for example, Randwick residents are charged $90 a year extra per household, and I just don't feel that our community is ready to be charged an additional rate levy, considering they're still coming to grips with the impact of rate harmonisation. And also the State of Electric Vehicles report released in August 2021 spells out the recommended options for local government. And I believe from having a deep dive into the delivery program and operational plan, I can see that Council already seems to be going down the journey of taking action on some of these things mentioned in the State of Environment report, including updating the fleet and fleet policy, community education, as our General Manager just mentioned, speaking to developers about charge points, speaking to state government and third parties regarding locations in this area, keeping an eye out for grant opportunities, as well as the creation of the new Environment and Resilience team that do have deliverables around this in the delivery program and operational plans. So for that reason, I will support point 1 of the motion, but I can't ask for staff to write an additional discussion paper when we've got immediate priorities that staff are just not dealing with and need to deal with. Thank you.
Can I just have a right of reply? I mean, No.
Just a comment. I'm assuming that SROC might be doing something at some stage. I would assume with the. But I think it's something that it would be all councils would be worthwhile to combine, because they do some wonderful, the electricity, the lighting. So I think maybe it's referred to. You can bring it up at the next SROC meeting. I'm the older generation, so I call this as we're building petrol stations. That's what I've classed it as. Okay, I understand that it's all going to go that way, but I know someone's trying to buy an electric vehicle. She's got to wait 12 months to get it. My daughter's got a hybrid, so she got a bit of both. So, I mean, it's a really detailed notice of motion, but I think, the moment, just looking at it the way it is, but possibly I think SROC could be the way that we go. When I saw Waverley, Wallara, Randwick, I actually thought it was part of SROC that had done it without involving the rest of the ROC. So I think that's where you should be bringing it up and getting them to do the work for us.
Yeah. Thank you. We can do that. All right. Any further discussion?
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, the Director of City Futures, is it possible to add a form that on any major development that council encourages the installation of these electric
So we're
stations?
in the process of finalising our amalgamated DCP, and that will be the opportunity for council to put that in.
I just thought if you wanted to put it
It's
on
good.
record that we have,
It's
it'll be great. Yep,
it's a good suggestion.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I want to applaud this notice of motion for pushing a greener LGA. I think, though, really important some of the things that have been mentioned, and I applaud Councillor Jansen for bringing this up as well, and Councillor Naji, in that we can't do this without consultation. There's a massive cost in regards to putting this in, and we need to make sure that we've got such an expenditure. We've all spoken about our budget, and we spoke to Mr. Mama, and we're going into a $158 million deficit, and this needs to be addressed. We can't just put this on the table and say, you know what, It's a good idea. We need to react. We need to put it on. I don't know about you, but I think residents would look at this and say, wait a minute, you're giving people, visitors from outside of town, free electricity. Who's going to pay for it? We are. I don't see anyone saying, let's give people from out of town free petrol, free gas. So I think if we're going to go down this line, there's got to be a lot more involved than just putting this on. We've got to go to community consultation. Otherwise, the residents of Bayside are going to wear the cost. And like Councillor Jensen said, $90 in this current climate, coming out of COVID and all the rest of it, this cannot be the case. So I think as the technology becomes more popular, and instead of waiting 6 months or a year to get a car, electric car, when things are coming back, we need to think about this. And Councillor Naji raises a good point. In our DCP, this would be a great initiative to look at all new sites. So I appreciate what you're trying to achieve. I just think in this current climate, without proper community consultation, it's too much for residents.
Thank you, Councillor Cedric. So we may...
So I don't get any right of reply against all these people who are...
It's not a right of reply, Councillor Douglas. You, like everybody else, has 5 minutes to speak to the amendment. It's not a right of reply because your motion has now lapsed because...
So can I speak to the amendment then, please?
You can speak to the amendment.
Thank you. So I just... there is a bit of confusion here. There's misinformation being thrown around. I think the whole point of a discussion paper is so that we get some facts on the table that we can all share and understand. It's not a massive investment in what actually is the future. We do need to plan for the future. That is our responsibility as councillors. And I keep hearing the no's again. No, we're not ready. No, we don't like what other people have done, so we won't do it. But we aren't saying let's do that. Nobody's saying let's charge $90 extra a year. Let's have a look at what other councils are doing and start to plan for what we as a council will do in this changing environment. I mean, we've just seen a federal election here where it was a climate change election. People want change. People have to embrace change. And if we don't get ahead of the ball with council, they'll turn around and say to us, why didn't you think about this?
Thank you, Councillor Douglas. Right of reply, and that's...
Can I just say that Council is taking action on this as part of the delivery program and operational plan that we all have access to. You can see the installation of a new environment and resilience unit that will be looking at this. They will be developing resilience plans. So this action is happening. I just think for the purpose of a discussion paper to come back, we should know the facts. Our experts here are doing these things.
Thank you, Councillor Jan. No, that's it. Thank you, Councillor Douglas. No arguing across the chamber. All right, there's an amendment before us. I put the amendment. All those in favour say aye. Against, I declare the amendment carried.
Can I call a division?
Thank you. A division has been called. So we shall go round the room. All those in favour, please state for or against. I'll just wait for council officers to...
I know it's too late, but we should have maybe reflected that the council 6 electric vehicles that was that would have been an indication to the community that we are wanting change for the environment for better. And it says about funding.
We can put it in the newsletter. Yeah. All right, Councillor Morrissey, Councillor Muscat, Councillor Bardell, Councillor Jansen, Councillor Naji, Councillor Saranowski, Councillor Werner, Councillor Wada, Councillor Barlow, Councillor Hannah, Councillor Douglas, Councillor McDougall, Councillor Cedric. Okay, the amendment is carried on now. I know. And myself, I was focused. I am for the amendment based on the fact that council have all these plans in place. I now put the amendment as the motion. All those in favour motion say aye. Against? I declare it carried. All right, councillors, that brings us to number 13. Are there any questions? No questions have been submitted with notice. Councillor Werner, I take your earlier question if you would like to submit that as a question with notice. Yeah, if you send that to Mr Soot, that would be great. Thank you. Councillor McDougall.
On item 10.9, Scarborough Park and Bexley Tennis Courts. So my question is basically I'd like to see this come back to a committee again. The courts at Scarborough are going out for community consultation a week after Bexley, but then we're going to tender 3 months later. And the completion date is going to be 4 months later. I'd just like to get some clarification around that and whether we can potentially bring it forward and what the costs involved with doing that would be. You know, could we potentially have savings if we go out to tender on these things together? These courts have both been in a terrible state for a very, very long time now. We're talking years that these have been very run down. So the sooner we can get them up and running, the better.
No,
but if that could be, you know, considered at the next committee meeting, that would be great.
Thank you. No further questions. Well, thank you, councillors. That concludes the meeting at 10:46 p.m. Thank you. We didn't pull it out. Yeah. So it's fine. Yeah.